some socialism. It's Socialism Friday. That's not alliterative at all. Happy Friday, guys. We made it through another week. This is Happy Hour, which is on my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke, youtube.com/actively unwoke, every week on Fridays at 5 p.m. And Happy Hour is a time when we learn about the enemy, when we watch a full hour plus woke training from start to finish. We listen to the language that they use. We listen to the concepts that they teach, and we make fun of it. And because it's happy hour, we drink, or I drink. You guys can drink if you want. You're under no obligation. But that's what we're going to do today. Now, I was inspired for happy hour this week because, as you'll recall, the other day on my main YouTube channel, we watched some crazy leftist abortion stuff. And one of the things that we watched was a presentation from the Democratic Socialists about the true history of abortion as they saw it, which some might speculate that was not an accurate history of abortion. But you know what? That's all truths are true to those who believe them, I suppose. And so it was so crazy that I was like, you know what? We need to start watching more Democratic Socialist content, because I felt like, because the Democratic Socialist training that we watched was like a year old. And I felt it was a precursor. It was like they were prophets. It was like they were telling us where the left was going. And so I started exploring the Democratic Socialist YouTube this past week. And that's how I came up with the presentation that we're going to be watching today, which I just think I'm actually really excited about this. I might be more excited about this than any recent happy hour presentation that we've watched. We're going to be watching an introduction to both socialism and capitalism as told by the Democratic Socialists of America. And this is a relatively new video that they have. It's just a couple months old. They uploaded it to their channel in January. And the description is as follows. What makes socialism a viable alternative to capitalism? And what are the pathways to getting there? How would you describe the critical problems with capitalism in just a few sentences? This event from the DSA's National Political Education Committee features speakers who will guide us through the basics of socialism and capitalism. Representing different socialist perspectives within the DSA, you'll learn how to discuss large ideas in simple ways with members and non-members alike. So we are literally today going to be learning about capitalism from the hardest of the hardcore socialist. I mean, maybe not the hardest of the hardcore, but like if you're in the Democratic Socialists of America, like I'm going to assume like you're pretty committed to this idea of socialism. Maybe they're not full-blown communists, they're not like the People's Party or anything, but like they're on their way there. And so I thought that this would be the perfect presentation for us to watch for happy hour. Like, the guys, there is so much not like here's another thing I learned, like fun fact, the Democratic Socialists of America are really obsessed with the Green New Deal right now. Basically, all of their more recent content is about the Green New Deal. So expect that AOC is going to be bringing that back anytime soon, because the Democratic Socialists of America are like really hammering on the Green New Deal. And I almost chose one of those presentations to watch today because like they've just done so much content about it recently. I was like, we better get ready for that. But no, I thought a nice introduction would probably be a better place to start. And so that is what we're going to watch today on Happy Hour. Now, Happy Hour, there's lots of stuff that we do together. I'm putting the bingo card in the chat right now. I'm not sure if it's going to be a good day for bingo, because bingo card is really written for woke trainings around like critical race theory and stuff like that. So it might not be a great day for bingo, but I put it in the chat anyway. And if you want to generate your bingo card, all of them are unique. You go ahead, you get a free square in the middle, and then we do lines or we do corners. And, you know, I mean, I'm looking at the bingo card right now. To be honest, it might not be the worst day for bingo that's ever been. We're going to see where the Democratic Socialists go. I mean, there's definitely some potential here. Once someone gets a line or corners, please shout out your bingo in the chat. You don't win a dang thing, but we will all congratulate you and give you a virtual high five. And then we will proceed on to blackout bingo. Now, I feel like, wasn't I mentioned What was I? Oh, this is what it was. So everyone today that plays bingo gets a free bingo square because I was mentioned in the chat on our Sassy Saturday stream, and that's the rule. If I mentioned it like a Sassy Saturday or something like that, everyone gets a free square. If Chris Rufo is ever mentioned on a happy hour, everyone gets a free square. I don't think that's going to happen today because it's not really the topic today, but just in case. And I am able and at the ready to make up any impromptu rules for bingo that I need to make up to keep us all entertained because this is my channel and I will make up rules if I want to. All right. Let's see. What else do we have? What else do we have? Oh, couple reminders before we get started. Number 1, guys, this is the very last chance to pre-order my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life, because the book will be out and released on Tuesday, finally. And I've actually heard that some of you who pre-ordered it actually got like a little bit of an advance. I've heard that the print book has started showing up at people's houses. I'm not sure why that happened. I guess probably not the best thing to complain about, but it will be coming out on Tuesday officially. And if you pre order the book by Tuesday, that means that you will get access to a special, private, exclusive book club, 3-part book club with me, the writer of the book, and we will be going through the 3 sections of it. So we're going to talk about decoding the woke. What I tried to do in the first section of the book was take basically what the woke are doing, the things that we have learned on Happy Hour and through other research that I've done, and I dumbed it down to the most simple possible language that I could. Because I think a lot of people try to make this way too complicated when it doesn't need to be complicated. Well, it's actually really hard to describe it simply, to be fair. But that's the first section of the book. It's decoding the woke, really understanding what they're saying, the language that they're using, what their real goals are. The second part of the book is case studies, all about real people in the real world who have stood up, spoken out, fought back, people just like everyone watching this video right now, because I want to provide you with real life examples that it is possible to stand up and fight back and you live to survive another day. So we go through several chapters filled with case studies of people doing just that. I give you actionable tips, actionable advice, and really try to, I really wanted this to be a book about what to do because quite frankly, I think there are an awful lot of people who have written books about like pontificating and intellectualizing about what's going on. We didn't need another book like that. The market is already filled with books pontificating and intellectualizing about the woke. I wanted to write a book about, okay, we know all this is bad. What do we actually do about it? Okay. And then the last section of the book is all about taking care of yourself when you're fighting back against the woke, self care, what to do if you're canceled, and things like that. So, in our 3-part book club, we're going to be going through each of these 3 sections. There are going to be 3 meetings. You can find out more information about that on activelyunwoke.com, and you can go under the events section, and that's got that all listed out. There is a slight chance that I might need to change the dates of the book club. I'm still trying to figure that out. And that's because, as some of you know, there's been a little kerfuffle with the audiobook accidentally getting read by the fucking crypt keeper. And I'm still trying to resolve the issue of the audiobook getting read by the crypt keeper. The audiobook will be re-recorded. I will be reading the audiobook. We're just trying to work out details of when that's going to happen. And so I'm kind of waiting on a schedule from my publisher to find out exactly when I'm going into the studio to re-record the absurd audiobook version, and I'm truly sorry if anyone got access to the released version of the audio and you were like, why is an evil church lady grandmother yelling at me for 7 hours? I'm so sorry. We're going to be taking care of it. It was not my fault. It was not my fault, but it is my responsibility to fix it. So I'm trying to figure that out with the publisher, and I will be updating people signed up for book club on that hopefully next week if the publisher does their damn job. All right, Incognito says free. Oh yes, Incognito. This is a great point. There's also a free square for Tim Pool getting my name right the other day. Congratulations for Tim Pool, who actually pronounced both my first and last name correctly when I challenged Lydia to a charity boxing match. Even then, Lydia apparently accepted the charity boxing match. She's convinced that she's a foot taller than me and apparently much larger than me, which I guess I should actually take as a compliment that Lydia thinks that she's that much bigger than I am when I don't think she is. Because I've met, I was thinking about this like I've met Lydia in person. Lydia knows she's not a foot taller than me, so I don't exactly know how that came out of her mouth, but it did. Anyway, free square because Tim Pool got my name right. Yay! Yes, yeah. Oh, we know who the Crypt Keeper is. We know who she is. We know who she is. She's a woke leftist. My audiobook got sabotaged by a woke leftist audiobook reader. That's a true story. I will be happy to tell that story someday when the book has been re-recorded by me and everything is hunky dory, when it's a little bit less traumatic for me. And all that. Okay, last thing before we get started is, of course, if you want to support the work I'm doing and get access to my awesome community Zoom calls and my amazing, awesome community, the very best thing you can do is join my locals. I am fully convinced, and I have not yet been proven wrong about this. I think I have the very best community on all of locals. It is an actual community. We actually know each other. We actually talk to each other. We don't just like post memes and bullshit. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you're looking for. But like we really do, we bring humanity into the internet. We have authentic interactions in my community. When you support the work I'm doing, yes, we have, sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh, sometimes we get in shouting matches on my community Zoom. Contrary to popular belief, you don't actually have to agree with me to be in my locals. You just have to promise not to be a dick. You can join locals by heading over to kb.locals.com/support and joining for $5 a month. You can join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. All these things support the work I'm doing, and I greatly appreciate. Oh, mother effer! I forgot to make the announcement yesterday with the Discord. See, this is something that my locals knows about me, that I forget to do shit like all the time. Brian, I will post the link for the supporter Discord in locals on this stream. I apologize. Man, I do think so. There is actually a pinned post at the top of the community that says, "Are you taking advantage of your locals benefits?" And if you go into the comments section of that, you're going to find the link to the Discord. So that is actually in there. But guys, honestly, my local, I don't know why you guys want to join my locals. Honestly, you can join for free too. If you want to take a look around and just confirm that it's the best community in locals, you can join for free at kb.locals.com. I really do credit my locals with keeping me sane, with keeping me grounded, well, as sane as I might come across on the internet. And we always welcome in new members. You don't have to be shy. If you are a current member and you haven't been to one of our community Zooms, you're going to want to join our community Zoom. Sparkle says, I am so close to joining locals just to join my community. Sparkle, I think that is a great inclination. And since we're going to be spending some time together today, why don't you just head over to kb.locals.com and join the community, Sparkle? I mean, listen, we could always use a little bit more sparkle in our community. It looks like you got some space stuff going on. I literally have space tattooed on my arm. So I feel like we're a really good fit, Sparkle. I think you should. I think, yes, we're going to change the community to Carlintology. I really should. I should change the community to Carlintology. I really should. All right, guys. Well, the last thing that we need to do before we get started watching our socialist presentation is I need a beer. Now, I have to tell you, I literally, like, 15 minutes before this stream, got back from the craft beer store. I was so disappointed because you guys have been ragging on me lately about how I'm drinking like fruity sour fruity sour beers. I don't know how questions came out of my mouth just then. You guys have been ragging on my choices of fruity sour beers, and my choices of fruity sour beers lately have been entirely reflective of the stock at the craft beer store that is down the street from my house. And so today I was like, I'm getting industrious. I'm going to a different craft beer store. And I went to a different craft beer store. I was like, they're going to have some stouts. They might have some porters. It's going to be nice. They mostly had fruity effing sour beers. Fruity sour beers and IPAs again. It's like the only thing apparently that brewers are making anymore are fruity sour beers and IPAs. But I do have some selections and we will do a poll. We will do a poll. Okay, Brian. Let me show you the options for today. First off, we have a sour grape beer. Now, I was actually kind of excited about this because I saw this the last time I was at the beer store and I kind of wanted to try it. And then I was like, another sour beer? Ew. But no, we've got sour grape as our first option here. I gotta set up the poll while we're doing it. Which beer should I drink? Sour grape is our first option. And then let's see. This one I got. This next one I got because I liked the beer can. Look, it's so Halloween. Look at this. And this is called Secret Wizard Handshake. So that sounds promising. And this is a blueberry and raspberry sour ale. So we're going to go with blueberry sour, blueberry raspberry sour. And okay, you guys are going to like these. Check this out. I got this is I'm excited about this one actually. Sugar Shack. Look at that can. It's like a stained glass Sugar Shack. And this is a Maple Hell's Bock. So a Bock is going to be like a little bit of a darker beer, but it's not like the darkest of darker beers. And this is a lager brewed with fresh Maine maple sap and Maine maple syrup. So we have the maple syrup beer as an option. Let me see. Add option in the poll. Maple syrup. I could spell syrup today. And then our last option for today, and I'm not going to drink all these beers on the stream, is a Pipe Dream Brewing Snickerdoodle Stout. So we have a cookie beer. Cookie beers I always find good. I find that stouts for stouts with cookie flavors are usually pretty good. So let me see. We have Snickerdoodle Stout. Okay, the poll is in the chat. Let me know which beer you want me to start off with today. Yeah, you had some choices. I'm sorry to people watching on Odyssey or Rockfin or Rumble. I can't do chats on there, but if you want to head over to my YouTube channel, if you would like to participate in the poll, we've got sour grape, we've got blueberry and raspberry sour, we have maple Hell's Bock, and then we have a Snickerdoodle Stout. Let me know what you think, guys. Ooh. See, I'm not going to comment. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to put in your answer. Maybe not a couple minutes. Maybe like 1 more minute. You have 1 more minute at most. Guys, please mount that like button for me if you have not yet mounted it. Please make sure you vote in the poll. Even if you don't drink beer, that doesn't mean we can't all have fun with a poll. Let's see. It looks like Snickerdoodle Stout might be the clear front runner at the moment. It looks like the blueberry raspberry. Oh. No, now we have a 3-way tie. Now your vote really matters. Now there's a 3-way tie. Sour grape. Apparently no one wants me to drink the grape beer, but there's like a 3-way tie among the rest of the beer. So you guys, like, someone's got to break the tie, man. Come on. I've got 57 people watching. I've only got 29 votes. The suspense is killing me. I don't even have a preference on this one. I'm not even trying to sway it. You guys are going to make my... Oh, God. Patrice is campaigning. Patrice is campaigning the chat. Wow. Wow. An unexpected turn of events. No, I'm not drinking all 3. God. I might drink 2 at the max. Oh, Stout's back in front with blueberry sour coming in second. Oh, it's getting close. I am ending voting in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bing. End poll. It looks like the Snickerdoodle Stout may have locked it in at the very end. Yeah, so close, Patrice. Good campaigning for the blueberry raspberry sour, but we're going to start off today with our Snickerdoodle Stout. I almost just knocked like 3 things off my desk. We're going to start off today with our Snickerdoodle Stout from Pipe Dream Brewing. All right. And of course, I will do the pour for all of you. I hope it's good. Pipe Dream Brewing for me. They're a New Hampshire brewing company, and I find them to be a little bit hit or miss, to be honest. Look at that. And I have not had a nice dark stout in so long, it feels like, except for like that Guinness I drank the other. What is the alcohol content? Oh, God. Oh, God. I probably should have looked at the alcohol content. This is a 10%er. You guys voted me in a 10% beer to start. Are you insane? I'm going to be on the floor. Oh, no. No, Murphy's Pool. No, I refuse. I refuse to drink your Italian beer out of sheer unadulterated spite. No, there's no spite. All right. Yeah, I'm going to... Well, we're watching Socialists. What could possibly go wrong? All right, guys, who's ready to get this party started and watch some socialism? Here we go. We're doing it. Everyone, cheers. Happy Friday. We made it through another week, and now we're just going to be a little bit masochistic for a couple of hours. But cheers to all of you. Let's get this party started. I hope the sound works. They're not saying anything. Why aren't they saying anything?
All right, I think we're probably good to begin.
Oh, thank God.
Welcome, everybody. Probably still have some people joining tonight. Welcome to Introduction to Socialism and Capitalism, led by NPEC, the
Sorry,
National
Spirit Matter. I'll put on
Education
captions
Committee
for
DSA.
you. We've got some
My
pronouns.
name is Evan. I'm calling in from Orange County, Mid-Hudson Valley, New York. We have two great speakers tonight. We have Peter Fraze, author of Four Futures, and Hadass Thier, the author of A People's Guide to Capitalism. I'm going to pass it off to Per to introduce himself, and then Per, you can give it to David, and then pass it back to me, and I'll give it to Tom.
It's a good beer.
Hi, everyone.
It really is.
My
It's
name
good
is
beer.
Per, he, him, Boston DSA. David?
Boston
I'm David
DSA.
Kotz. I'm a member of the National Political Education Committee of DSA and the River Valley DSA chapter in Western Massachusetts. Tom?
Holy shit, all these people are like an hour away from me.
Hello all, my name is Tom Hansberger. I'm a member of NPEC, National Political Education Committee, and also a Milwaukee DSA. Back to you, Evan.
All right, thank you. So if you're joining us for tonight's program, you're just joining now. Again, we have two great speakers, Peter and Hadass. We are going to start with a brief introduction from both of them. Once they've had the chance to introduce themselves, then Tom will be so kind as to moderate a discussion between them, asking some basic questions about what is socialism, what is capitalism. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit about how to break down some very complex topics into very simple wording.
Does anyone want to take a guess before they get into it? Does anyone want to take a guess in the chat how they're going to define socialism and capitalism? Because I just have a sneaking suspicion that their definitions of socialism and capitalism are just going to be like completely wrong in like 19 different ways. Yeah, point of privilege. Please do not use gendered language. So no land blessing today as of yet. Anyway, maybe they'll do a midstream land blessing. Who knows? But I would like to see some predictions for how they're going to define socialism and capitalism. If people would like to take a guess at that.
Comrades and
comrades
members alike. So with that, Tom, I'm going to pass it off to you. Just so everybody knows, there will also be a Q&A.
He said comrades and non-DSA members alike. So it's like if you remember the party, then you're a comrade. God, I kind of want to watch 1984 tonight. I like that 1984 movie still holds up. They did a really good job. The one with the guy that was also in V for Vendetta, John Hurt. Really good movie. Let's see. Yes. Let's see some predictions. Kurt says capitalism will be defined as state-corporate partnership, even though we know that that is fascism. Capitalism is the root of all evil. They will conflate capitalism with cronyism. Capitalism will include at least one reference to racism. I would predict as many as several references to racism, Sean. When people get triggered, they will ask for a land blessing. That might exactly happen. Yes. Alex says, I think they will say capitalism is racist. Yep. Hallie says John Hurt is a great actor. He is. And socialism will mention equity. Yes, we do need to do a Zoom movie night. You're correct. You're correct on that. All right. Yeah. Remember the point of personal privilege guy who got so angry because people were raising their voices? Man. Hallie says capitalism is homophobia, misogyny and ableism, racial capitalism. Patrice says capitalism is slavery. Let's see who got it right. Anyone who gets their definition brought up gets a free bingo square. Sam says they will say capitalism equals systemic oppression.
Q&A session towards the end, so do look forward to that, and you're welcome to submit questions throughout the entire duration of the event. All right, so with that, Tom, go right on ahead.
Thanks, Evan. Just so you know, we are taking audience questions tonight. We're going to have about 40 minutes of discussion before that. If at any time you have a question that you think would be good for us to ask Hadass or Peter or both, please use the Q&A button if you're on Zoom. Down at the bottom, should be on the toolbar. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and ask Hadass, please introduce yourself, your body of work, any thoughts on socialism and capitalism before we get into the rest?
Great, thank you so much. Thanks, Tom, and thanks to the National Political Education Committee. This is an exciting.
Does she have a
event to
black
get to
picture
be
of Karl
part of.
Marx? Wait,
Yeah,
hang
so
on.
my name is Hadass here.
Does she have is that like a black Karl Marx behind her? What is that? Am I wrong to say that's a black Karl Marx? I mean, in her kitchen, because it's like her blender is like literally right under the picture of the black Frederick Douglass. Thank you. Frederick Douglass. Thank you. Thank you. I was like, that's not right. I was like, that's not, who the fuck is that? Thank you. Aboriginal Karl Marx. It does look like fucking Karl Marx though. I'm sorry, it does. It does. Still a little bit odd to have it hanging in her kitchen. But okay, I mean, to each their own. I'm about to have a Michael Goddard painting of a dog hanging in my kitchen, so I guess I'm not really one to judge.
I've been an activist and a socialist for about 20 plus years. I'm the author of A People's Guide to Capitalism, which provides a Marxist lens into the political economic system that we live under, capitalism, which is obviously what we're here to talk about, along with socialism. And
yeah, hell, you're right. They all do look like
we'll
Karl
talk
Marx.
more about
They do.
the specifics of how we define capitalism in this discussion. And I think that's a really important thing for us to do, not as like an academic exercise, but because, you can't effectively tackle a problem without
Does she sell her book?
Right? Where did capitalism come from and why?
Great question.
What keeps it in place? What makes it tick? What are its contradictions? If you want to build an effective opposition to a world owned and controlled by the 1%, you need to know what you're up against. So, there are some good and interesting debates about how we define the system and different aspects of the system, points of emphasis, et cetera. But generally speaking, those debates, if you're having them well, are grounded in reality, right? We live in a capitalist society, so you can debate the details, but you have some concrete evidence to measure things against. I think defining socialism, which we'll get to do more in the discussion, is a bit more murky because I would argue we don't have like actually existing socialism right now. We have socialistic policies and some countries that have pursued more or less of those policies, but in the context of a capitalist global world order that dominates, every aspect of society and constantly works to undermine and limit whatever socialistic policies or experiments and so on take place. So that doesn't make the discussion any less important. It's all the more critical that a movement of socialists that's, finally growing in this country after many difficult decades for the left, try to work out not only a vision of what socialism could look like, but also how do we think we might get there? I don't think these are easy answers, to any of those questions. I don't think they can be tackled in a single conversation, but it's part of a process that I think as the left and as socialists and as members of DSA, we need to get much better at and get more rigorous in tackling collectively. I think at the very least, if we're going to win people to joining our movement, we can't just invite them to struggle against something. We have to have a vision that is, what we're for. And
that's true for us too. I actually wrote about this in my book, is like, it's not just enough to be against the woke and all their bullshit. You have to have a vision for what you're trying to attain, because people don't always like people are fine fighting against something for like a very, but if you really want to rally people for the long, we need to do when we're fighting back against, what you need to do is give them a vision that they can fight for. And so this is something, so the vision that I articulated in the book is I want to live in a society that is based on the principles of color indifference, rugged individualism, and meritocracy. That's the society that I want. So we're going to see, I guess, what their vision is as well. And I did want to just point out that, hang on, where is it? Yep, according to Dave123R, her book is for sale on Amazon. So isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic.
And we have to have enough confidence in what that is and how we might get there for it to begin to make the case that this is, a plausible option for working people in this country to be part of, not just kind of a pie in the sky, fanciful thinking. So I'm really excited to get to be part of this discussion. I think it's really important that it's happening. And my goal is to contribute what I can, but more importantly, to learn alongside all of you here.
Thank you so much, Hadass. We're happy to have you here with us as well.
Brent, that is fake news. Fake news. Brent is lying. Carlin said this would be our last stream of shopping. No, don't spread fake news. Although I did learn some interesting news. For my locals members, you will understand what this means. So I not only learned, we learned last week that stepmom is giving up her locals. I learned yesterday that the Queen from England is also leaving locals. Too bad, so sad, 2 down, 3 to go. I know you're all heartbroken at this development.
Well, Peter, same question. Please introduce yourself. Any opening thoughts about socialism and capitalism about this conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So yeah, I'm Peter Fraze, coming to you from same as Evan, the Mid-Hudson Valley of New York, Mid-Hudson Valley DSA, the city of Newburgh in my case. And yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I first started considering myself a socialist when I was maybe around 15, which would have been back in the mid 90s. So that tells you how old I am. And that was not a time when when there was a lot of socialism around. My initial, in terms of understanding capitalism and the need for an alternative to capitalism, I mean, my starting point is what I learned from going to the Minneapolis public schools, not from my teachers, but from observing the class and race inequalities around me that were manifestly not based on anything that anybody did or deserved, but based on the different positions that we occupied in the society that we lived in. And so that started me on the path of deciding either you find up with a rationalization for those inequalities, or you decide that they have no rationale and they need to be overturned. And so I came to believe that, socialism was the name that I chose for the project of human emancipation, because capitalism is central to what makes us not free and what makes us unequal in the society that we live in. And without contesting it and overturning it, any real project of liberation and emancipation is impossible. I'm also glad to be here because, I came to also believe,
Yeah, Kurt is making a great point. Kurt says, government school is the ultimate in socialism. He is utterly confused. I mean, it's like, I really wonder, like, if these people even understand their definitions of, like, half the words that they're using. Like, what do they actually mean? And I think there's a difference between us looking up a dictionary definition of something and what they mean of it, because oftentimes they will be using different definitions than what the actual definition is. What does he mean when he says liberation? Like, what does that actually look like? What does he mean when he says, like, like reducing like disparity or whatever? They don't actually have a definition for any of these things. They're just saying words that sound good in the community in which they're existing, and they don't actually mean anything.
At first, I would say because again, the mid 90s was a down time for socialism, and Minneapolis was not exactly a hotbed, at least at the parts of it that I was experiencing. I was what I would call a socialist of the HX section. Meaning that I read books in the library from the Marxist section. That's HX is the Library of Congress code.
Okay. Spoiler alert. If your library has a Marxism section, you might be living in a place that has a little bit of socialism. I worked in a public, I didn't work. I volunteered in my town's public library growing up. I went to the public library in another town, which is far better than the public library I had in my town. I don't recall there being a Marxism section. Have any of you ever been to a public library that has a Marxism section? I'm just saying that might be reflective of the society in which you are living in. AD says, didn't The Who have a song about this? We don't get fooled again. I think that they did, AD. Excellent observation. Yeah, Holly says one such bookstore in Los Angeles has a poster of Chairman Mao. Yes, Gayla says, I have not been to a library with a Marxism section. No, he's saying Minneapolis. Minneapolis is like uber woke. Minneapolis is a great city, but it is uber woke. Average person says, my university didn't have a Marxist section, at least not one that I saw. Reagan says, I've never seen a Marxist section at the public libraries. Yep. I mean, I can understand it in the political science section, but he's actually saying like the legitimate Marxism section. And, I just find it a little ironic. That's all.
But I eventually met socialists, initially not DSA. My initial experiences were with remnants of what's called the New Communist Movement. But I joined DSA in 1998
really?
at the University of Chicago. Not because I thought they had the exact perfect analysis of capitalism and socialism. In fact, quite the opposite, because DSA was open to sort of idiosyncratic people like me with slightly different perspectives on socialism, not interested in sort of doctrinal purity so much as being organizing and being in motion and being engaged with the politics that was happening at the time. And I believe the old Debs line, an unorganized socialist is a contradiction in terms. You've got to be a part of something. So I joined DSA in 1998, and I been there, and I was still there when all of a sudden this organization that I thought would eventually just die out suddenly exploded into this totally different thing that it is today. And along the way, I was one of the original editors of Jacobin magazine, which is also because I knew the original Jacobin people through DSA. And I wrote a book called Four Futures, which attempts to talk through some sort of basics of socialist and Marxist theory in a popularized way, also engaging with speculative fiction, science fiction, not to...
Oh, he wrote a book about Marxism and science fiction. Oh, how ironic. How ironic. So I actually wanted to run an idea by you guys. So I have like 18 ideas for my next book. And so there's a lot of different books I want to write, but the idea that struck me today, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, is I want to write a book, I think, called The Case for Defunding the Schools, which wouldn't be as actionable as Actively Unwoke, but I think it's a necessary book to have with like all of the latest stuff that we're doing. And I can talk about the school being defunded in Croydon and all that stuff. Let me know what you think of that idea, like the case for defunding the schools.
Predict what the socialist or dystopian future will look like, but to open up some vistas and how we can imagine how things are and how things might be different. So I'm looking forward to having a little more of this conversation about what is the system that we live in called capitalism, and how might we imagine socialism both as a goal and as a movement. So yeah.
So, it's funny. I also am a UChicago alum and became a socialist while studying at the University of Chicago. So that's something we share in common. That's very interesting.
Oh, the University of Chicago producing socialists.
So
who would have thought it?
The first question.
Who would have thought it?
And that is, I think, a question that's on everybody's minds. How do we define capitalism, and what is so problematic about it? In other words, what is capitalism and why does it suck? Hadass, go ahead.
Sure. So capitalism is a political economic system, right? That's based on private ownership of the means of production. And all that's meant by means of production is the means to produce things, right? The factories, office buildings, land, software, et cetera. All these things are monopolized in the hands of the few. And that was really the historical basis for capitalism. It gained its first foothold in England through what was called the enclosure movements, which basically expropriated masses of people from their land and their means to produce for themselves.
Defund all the schools.
And in this way,
thank you, Gypsy.
Through the violent expulsion of masses of people from their land, a class of people was created over time that have no way to sustain ourselves except but to work for someone else.
Really? Because you actually don't seem to live in a bad place. Like, you've got no way to sustain yourself except by working for someone else. Didn't you write a book that you're selling on Amazon? Can't one sustain themselves by writing if they write like a lot and every day and they're getting their work out there and they're building an audience? That seems like a pretty easy way to sustain yourself without having to work for someone else. You've got like a $200 blender sitting behind you, so I have to think that you're sustaining yourself somehow. I mean, to be clear, like writing a book doesn't necessarily make you bank. It really doesn't, unless you sell like a bajillion copies of that book. So I'm not suggesting that anyone who writes a book is a millionaire or anything. That's not actually the way it works. I mean, you can do well. It's not like you're going to be in the poorhouse if you're actually but like, you're telling me that you have no way to sustain yourself other than working for someone else. You literally wrote a fucking book that you're literally selling on Amazon right now. Please.
So I'm a Marxist, and that's sort of like my the window through which I look at these things. And Karl Marx defined capitalism as a social relation of production. And what he meant by that is that profits aren't the result of good accounting tricks or the inventive
Listen, man.
ideas of the super rich.
Anyone who has a plant that size in their living room is doing okay. Spoiler alert, people who are struggling do not tend to have giant fucking plants in their perfectly nice, pristine living room and a $200 fucking food mixer right behind them in the presentation. I don't have any plants in my fucking living room. Well, that's mostly because I'm lazy. Every plant that Victor bought me this like plant thing to have in my office because Joshua told me, he's like, you need more nature around you. And so Victor went out of his way to buy me this plant thing to have in my office, and it was so nice. And then all the plants died because I don't take care of plants and I suck at watering things. But pro tip, if you see a plant in a living room, this is not a person who's struggling. AD, thank you for the super chat. She was talking about primitive accumulation, but what she will get wrong is that once society becomes wealthy enough, it goes through a progressive era like we did where our current system provides welfare for the bottom half. Really good point, AD. Really good point. Thank you for the super chat. So Brent is claiming, and Brent has already lied to us once, so I'm not sure if we should believe him. Brent is claiming that's a $700 to $800 mixer. I mean, I don't know. I don't have one of those fancy mixers. I don't really cook. Oh, hey Jamie, welcome back. I still need to take care of the other channel, but it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well.
But instead, they're the outcome of an exploitative relationship between two classes of people, bosses and workers. And that exploitation is what makes the system tick. And it's based on that structure of private ownership over the means of production, because the fact that we don't have that the vast majority.
Why is a mixer $700? There are so many better things you can spend on like $700 on. Like, why would someone be like, I need a mixer. I need a mixer so bad that I'm going to spend $700 on a mixer. I really don't understand this. Why? No, it's like a Cuisinart. Do they have like a lifetime guarantee or something? I don't know. I have no use for a mixer, so I have no idea.
Majority of people in our society don't have an independent means to produce for ourselves, to sustain ourselves and our families, forces us to have to enter into an
it's a
exploitative relationship with our bosses. We're told that we have the freedom to work where we want, but ultimately, whether we work for this boss or that boss, we have the choice of working for someone else or starving.
That's not true.
There are obviously some people.
There are many options that are not working for someone else or starving. You can make money. This is why these people piss me off. You can make money doing almost anything. You can make money doing almost anything. You don't have the choice of working for someone else or starving. There is a whole plethora in between those two things where maybe you do part-time work for someone else, maybe you focus on your writing, maybe you wash windows for people, maybe you create content on the internet. They're like, more than ever in the history of the world, every single person has a variety of options in which they can make money. And quite frankly, you would be really, really smart. And I say this to everyone in the chat right now. You would be really, if you work for someone else, if you have like a day job, create some sort of side hustle that no one can take away from you. I started creating my side hustle in like 2012. And I had my day job, and I was finishing my PhD, and I had my side hustle, which turned into my organizational psychology practice. I had all these things running at the same time. And so when I needed it, my side hustle eventually became my full-time business. Every single person should have a side hustle of some sort of business that you're building, and maybe you don't even make that much money at first. Maybe it's like a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. It's not even anything to write home about, but every single person should have a side hustle that you are building right now, because I promise you, if you ever really need to rely on that side hustle, you're going to be really, really happy that you started building it now when you didn't maybe necessarily need it, because when you do need it, you want it to be there.
People who
And don't listen to anyone who tells you that you can't do it. Anyone can do this. It just takes a lot of hard work.
are self-employed, and that's usually a precarious position to be in. But this really exists at the fringes of the economy. The vast majority of society is made up of working people, people who have to work for someone else in order to subsist and survive. And so in our society, bosses and workers meet each other on this very unequal playing field where one owns the means to produce value and the other has no choice but to sell their labor in order to live. And no matter how, essential workers are suddenly, discovered to be in mainstream discourse, the bosses control the terms of our employment, our hours and conditions, what it is we produce, and then they get to control the fruits of our labor at the end of the day. So they take home the profits and we take home our wages, which is generally a small fraction of what it is that we've produced.
But you agreed to those wages. When you accepted that job, you agreed to those wages. No one forced you to take a job. Sam makes a great point. He says over 90% of companies are small or family owned. Guys, if you don't want to accept a job, you don't have to. This is actually one of the things that prevents people from applying for new jobs like all the time. They worry that if they got offered a job, they'd have to accept it. Just because you're offered a job doesn't mean you have to accept it. Just because you're offered a salary doesn't mean you have to accept it. You have many options. You can negotiate. You can say, no, that's too low for me. You can, there are many other options that are not just instantly accepting the first salary that's offered to you. In fact, you should never accept the first salary that's offered to you. And I'm saying this to all the women, because women are notorious for not negotiating salaries. No matter if you're offered a new job, they have factored into that job that you are going to negotiate the salary. So they're going to try to lowball you up front. If they offer you a salary, they say, "We want to offer you this job for $75,000 a year, whatever." I just made that number up. And you say, "Okay," you have left money on the table, because they have lowballed you to start because they're expecting that you're going to come back with another offer. So if they offer you 75, you could say, I was really thinking more in the realm of 85, and I would like to have I want to make sure I can work from home, and I want to make sure I can have a certain amount of vacation days, and is there any other flexibility with this or that? You want to put all your options on the table, because what they're then going to come back and say is okay, maybe we can't do 85, but maybe we can do 80, and maybe we can give you a few extra vacation days. You should always negotiate every single offer. Never just accept an offer up front. Always negotiate, because if your employer is not willing to negotiate at all, then that shows you that they are not the type of employer you are going to want to work for, because it's going to create a variety of problems. If your employer pulls the offer because you tried to negotiate, that is a warning sign from God that that job is not worth it. Okay? So always negotiate. If nothing else happens, you're at least testing your employer for, are they going to be flexible and are they going to be reasonable? But most of them have factored, and I know that negotiation makes people nervous, but really they have factored it in to the job offer that you are going to negotiate.
So the example that I use in my book and that I often use to explain how exploitation works is Starbucks, which is
Ha
mostly 'cause
Someone
it's a
said she was
simple
the
and
Starbucks
straightforward
socialist
example, but
earlier.
today, as Starbucks workers are beginning to unionize, it's all the more relevant. So, let's say they pay you $120 for an 8-hour shift at Starbucks, but you can probably, in most cases, make $120 worth of fancy coffee drinks in an hour or two. But you can't then, after 2 hours, throw down your towel and say, well, fair is fair. I've made back the money you paid me. Your labor is theirs for another 6 hours. And the rest of your shift, you're basically working for free.
Right, because you agreed to
And
that.
that extra value
You agreed to that.
produced during this
No one
stolen
forced you to
time
agree to
is
that.
what Marx called surplus value, and it's the basis of capitalist profits. So, what's problematic about capitalism, in my opinion, is basically everything. We live in this incredibly beautiful world that's rich with life and resources. We're lucky to be human beings who have these complex minds full of creative potential, full of, love and connection. All of this beauty very jarringly exists alongside of incredible pain and suffering and exploitation, divisions, and not to mention, just the trajectory of planetary destruction that we're on. Capitalism, systematically destroys both planetary and human potential, because both human beings and the planet are basically inputs into a production process for profits. And, at the heart of most of the great problems on Earth is capitalism, a system which not only exploits the majority of humanity and the planet for the sake of profits, but it also compels capitalists to continue to grow and accumulate profits no matter what, in order to stay competitive, way past the point of what is sustainable for the planet. We live in a system that subordinates every decision made in our society to a very simple metric of, is it profitable or not? We're seeing that at play with a climate disaster, which is just simply not profitable.
Green New Deal.
Effectively
Green New
address.
Deal. They're
We
obsessed.
see it very plainly in terms of the response or non-response to the pandemic. Bidding wars for masks and ventilators and vaccines instead of a global cooperation, insisting on keeping businesses and schools open under any condition in order to restore full economic activity. This is
These people are telling us that they would have preferred the entire economy and schools to be shut down indefinitely in the face of a pandemic for a virus that killed not that many people who got it. Although, fun fact, I accidentally watched MSNBC last night. I didn't mean to. I just kind of turned on the TV and it happened to be on MSNBC, and I just let it go because I was focusing on other things. I think I was tweeting or something, and so MSNBC was playing in my house for an hour and a half last night because I didn't intend to get sucked into it, but I kind of did. So, fun fact, on MSNBC last night, they said, they didn't say this, but they said this. They said that we've now reached 1 million deaths of people in the U.S. for COVID, and what that means is that there have been more COVID deaths under Joe Biden than there were under Donald Trump. And that's literally what was on MSNBC last night. And they, of course, didn't paint it that way. But what they did was they were like, all these selfish people who didn't follow COVID precautions, they are responsible for us hitting 1 million deaths. It was amazing. It was amazing to watch that happen in real time. Peter, thank you for the super chat. It's like wages are only a fraction of the production generated by it because it's only one of the inputs. Seriously, these people think capitalist equipment, advertising, distribution, etc. come out of nowhere. Yes, they do. These people have absolutely no idea what is required to run a business. They have absolutely, they have absolutely zero idea what is required to run a business at all, because they've never tried to run their own business, which is why they truly believe that the only option they have is working for someone else when that is not true.
Capitalism is kind of laid bare before us more and more every day.
Thank you, Hadass. Yeah, really, interesting point about how capitalism got started. Many people aren't aware that the commons was a thing before it was closed off from public use. So, Peter, same question. What is capitalism and why is it so problematic?
Sure. So, I mean, well, as I think will probably happen, I'm going to, I'm largely agree with the overview that Hadass gave. I'll try to sort of get at some, maybe I'm inevitably going to repeat a little bit, but I'm going to maybe phrase things in a slightly different way or emphasize some different things. So, I look at, the historical background is important.
Let's see. Thank you, AD, for the super chat. YouTube, Milton Friedman's Lesson of the Pencil. A great suggestion, AD.
I think when we look at capitalism as the sort of as a sort of contemporary system, we're talking about this opposition between capital and wage labor, in which capital exists to accumulate and must exploit wage labor in order to do so. And I think the explanation of exploitation that Hadass gave is entirely correct and is central to certainly a Marxist account of capitalism. One thing that I think is important to understand is that exploitation, often because of the vernacular ways that people understand that term, the sort of in Marxist discourse, exploitation is sort of a technical term. It has to do with the phenomenon that Hadass described, where you do your shift at Starbucks and sell $100 worth of coffee and get in an hour and get $10 or $15 or whatever it is in wages. But that can sometimes lead people, I think, to the conclusion that, well, the problem with capitalism is that I'm not getting enough of a share of this process, and it would be just if I just if the workers just got a bigger share. Which is not to say that demanding a bigger share is not a big part of socialist politics, as I think we'll get to later. It obviously is. But that doesn't change the fundamental relationship of unfreedom here, which is that
unfreedom.
Have
wait,
no
wait,
choice.
wait. Did he just call it unfreedom? Have they literally adopted Orwell, like freedom or unfreedom? Like unperson? That's what he just said. Unfreedom. Wow.
But to work for someone who has the capital to employ them because
Yeah.
they have no
Okay,
other means.
Gayla. I'll replay that. I'll replay that. Hang on.
Capitalism is that I'm not getting enough of a share of this process, and it would be just if I just if the workers just got a bigger share. Which is not to say that demanding a bigger share is not a big part of socialist politics, as I think we'll get to later. It obviously is. But that doesn't change the fundamental relationship of unfreedom here.
Unfreedom, unfreedom, unfreedom. Look. Unfreedom. They've literally adopted Orwell's doublespeak. Wow. Gypsy Witch says, in capitalism, does no one work? Well, no, they work, but they work for the boss who exploits their labor. So you're apparently under capitalism, you are not allowed to work for yourself. You are only allowed to work for a boss. Unfucking freedom. Hang on, let me just take a screenshot of this real quick. New term alert. Unfreedom. Wow, hang on. I'm just going to make a... Okay. Thank you for humoring me.
Is that workers have no choice but to work for someone who has the capital to employ them because they have no other means. We have no other means to secure our means of subsistence. And what it even, obviously it's better to make a higher wage than a lower one, but raising the wage in and of itself does not change that fundamental relation of domination and unfreedom.
Said it
so
again.
I think in understanding both
domination and
what is the problem with
unfreedom.
capitalism and what it means to get beyond it, I think it's important to recognize that it is the sort of institution of wage labor itself, that fact that we have to sort of give away our freedom. We're forced to give our freedom away in order to get the wages we need to survive, that is fundamental to the problem here. And then on the other side,
hang on.
the problem of capital is not just the problem that wealth is extremely concentrated.
So the definition of unfreedom is that they need to give their labor away in order to survive. That is the definition I think that we just heard. The definition, I'm making a note on Twitter, of unfreedom is that we is that socialists believe we are required to give our labor away in order to survive. Making a note for later because Twitter is basically my notebook. That's the way it goes. Peter, thank you for the super chat. What happens when wage labor exploits capital? I don't think they've thought about that. The employees are paid more than their value and the car companies crash. Seriously, GM workers were making all in $70+ an hour to start. Should have let the companies fold. Yeah, I don't think that they've thought that far ahead. Thank you for the super chat, Peter. No, Peter. Peter is allowed to super chat as much as he wants. G Dante. Or just chat in. He doesn't have to super chat. Peter's allowed to do whatever he wants.
Traded in a few private hands, that is a problem. Although I would argue there's ways of abstractly at least understanding capitalism as a process that does not even require that. But obviously that is the way contemporary capitalism works. And so that's a problem, but it's not just that they have a lot and we have a little. It's also, as Hadas also talked about, that these decisions, these small number of capitalists and this, the aspects of the state that support them are guiding the use of—
Wait, so they don't support the state. Are these people like socialist libertarians? Are these the mysterious socialist libertarians that I keep hearing exist, but I don't really believe exist because socialism and libertarianism is like a fundamentally, they're two opposite ends of the spectrum. But he doesn't seem to like the state. Where is this going? Well, Peter, you can test your boundaries, okay? That's all I'm saying. You've given a couple super chats today. Peter, through capitalism, you have bought some excessive freedom in the chat. You can go to town. Yeah, Note says, capitalism, doesn't he mean unsocialism? Capitalism is unsocialism. I love it.
of social wealth in a direction that is oriented toward making money, that is oriented toward accumulating more capital, right? This is the fundamental distinction of capitalism. Capitalism is taking wealth and using it to make number go up, to accumulate more wealth, rather than to put it toward any democratically or otherwise decided social purpose. And that is what makes it capital. Like, I think it's important to understand capital, to me at least, in the view I take, capital is not a thing. It's a relation and it's a process and a way of organizing society. So that—
No, capital very literally is a thing. In fact, I have several $100s worth of capital sitting on my desk right now. Capital is a very real thing. It's called fucking money. This is my tattoo money right here for when I get my rescheduled tattoo appointment. I usually don't have cash around, but I just happen to right now. But I'm just saying at the point, like, it is a very real and literal thing. It is not just a fucking idea. No, average person, is not your money. It is my money. Yes, we should start calling anti-racism unracism. That would it's like unwoke. Oh my god. Well, no, I don't want to bring double speak into my unwoke universe. I don't want to do. But anti-racism, we should start calling it unracism. We should. Yes, unwoke. We're all actively unwoke here. God, everyone is trying to claim my money in the chat. Everyone is trying to claim my money. You all didn't become socialists over Nuclear. You are not a socialist, Nuclear. God.
A big pile of money, you can't just look at that and say it's capital. A factory, you can't look at it and say that's capital. If I have a big pile of money in a factory, if I use the money to throw a party for my friends in the factory, that's not capitalism. If I use the money to hire them to make things for me in the factory and then sell those things to make more money.
That actually is capitalism. That happens all the time in the workplace. Workplaces go on retreats. Workplaces have birthday parties. That is all a part of capitalism because when you are running a business, your employee morale is actually important. These people do not understand individualism at all. This is the thing. This is why, I mean, if no other reason, like these people do not understand that you need to keep people happy and you need to keep people motivated, that it's too much individualism for them. Throwing a party at work is very literally capitalism. It's part of running an effective business. Goddamn right I'm a greedy capitalist, and I don't apologize. Don't apologize. Mm-mm. And you guys can't have my money. You can suck a dick. I don't care. All your super chats belong to me. All your super chats are being tattooed onto my arm.
And continue to reinvest those profits. That's capitalism. It's, you know, it's value in motion, as Marx said. And it's that leads to so many of these dynamics where the health of the environment and of the earth is thrown aside because that's irrelevant to the process of capital accumulation, in which human needs are irrelevant if they're not profitable. That is the system of capitalism that I think, you know, when we look at capital on the one side and wage labor on the other side, we see value in motion for accumulation rather than human need, and we see workers in a position of being dominated and
I can't blame you guys for trying.
I
can't blame you
for
guys
the sake of keeping this machinery of accumulation going. And it is breaking that relation and that system that I see as central to the socialist project.
Thank you. You know, I think that your comments, Peter, speak to some pretty some deep questions that we want to address here as well. But you know, one thing that I think you're right to point out is that capital is a process, not just a pile of money, as you put it, right? And as Marx discusses, it's only capital. Capital only becomes capital once someone with a hoard of wealth reinvests that in order to try to grow their wealth, inevitably by exploiting other people.
Oh my God.
But
dude, you, Tom, you literally just almost hit the nail on the head. He was like, people with money reinvest that money in order to make more money. Tom, that is exactly the fucking point. The reason that people who are bosses in capitalism reinvest their money, the reason they put up every ounce of financial risk in starting a business is the prospect of making a profit. If there was no prospect of making a profit, then there would be no incentive to reinvest your personal wealth into a business. That is the entire point. The reason that bosses make more profit is because they have taken 100% of the risk in the initial investment of money in the fucking business. That is the point. And then you hire people who agree to a salary in which they agree to that salary in exchange for a production of work. That is the entire point. Judy, thank you for renewing your locals today. I really appreciate it. I actually did see your renewal come through today. I was like, thank you, Judy. Emphasize says, I identify as Captain Spaulding today, so y'all come get some fried chicken, gas, and a tutti frutti ice cream cone. You know, I almost got an ice cream cone earlier because there's a creamy place right down the road from me called King Cone, and they had lemon today, and lemon is like my favorite. Lemon is the best. Not tutti frutti, although there used to be an ice cream flavor called Crazy Vanilla that was it was like vanilla, but it was all these different colors and it tasted a little bit different than normal vanilla. I fucking loved Crazy Vanilla. Crazy Vanilla was the best.
To a really important question, you know, it's not just about slightly higher wages or mild reforms, right? It's about something bigger than that. So I want to touch on that question by asking, what is socialism and how is it different from social democracy? So Peter, I'll kick it back to you.
Good question.
Since I think this touches on some part of your answer.
Yeah, so socialism versus social democracy. I mean, first of all, what is socialism? Socialists typically hate answering this question because it gets into this.
They don't know what it is.
If we believe,
they don't know what socialism
if you believe,
is.
as I do, that socialism is, you know, in one way defined as the project of human emancipation, and that must be democratic and collective. For me, as the blabbermouth up here, to tell you what socialism is would be contrary to the process of people making their own history. through the actual unfolding of politics and masses in motion.
He really doesn't even know what socialism is. They have no definition of socialism. How this guy has literally written a book on socialism. Sam says voting with your money is the ultimate freedom. That is exactly correct. And Peter has voted with his money in $100 super chat. Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. Weaklings in the chart. Carlin, give me your tattoo money chats. Have some more tattoo money. Peter. Thank you, Peter. I really, really appreciate it. Peter is a baller. Peter is the king of the chat. If anyone wants to dethrone Peter, Peter can say whatever he wants to in the chat for the rest of the day. Peter can even insult me if he wants to, and I won't block him or ban him. Peter is now the king and ruler of the chat, and you are all but Peter's minions in the chat. That's how capitalism works. Thank you, Peter.
And there's famous lines from Marx where he says this, very early on in the German ideology. He says, communism is for us not a state of affairs which is to be established, an ideal to which reality will have to adjust itself. We call communism the real movement which abolishes the present state of things. The conditions of this movement result from the premises now in existence. And toward the end of his life, reacting to some of the reviews of Capital from French utopians, he made fun of them for criticizing him just because he said, he says, I imagine I confine myself to the mere critical analysis of actual facts instead of writing recipes for the cookshops of the future. And so we're always mindful of not writing recipes for the kitchens of the future, I think. But I do tend to...
Peter, I just ask that you be a benevolent overlord of the chat, that you don't let the power that I have bestowed upon you for the rest of this stream go to your head. That's all I ask. Benevolent overlord, Peter. They can all address you by King Peter if you would like. Alex says, thank you, Peter, for your contribution to Carlintology. We thank you. Everyone chat in a crown for Peter, please.
To think of, socialism orients itself at least around sort of fundamental demands for a way of organizing society that is different from what I just described in terms of the capital relationship between capital and wage labor. And that means that the great wealth that exists in our society should be put toward the satisfaction of human needs: food, shelter, healthcare, education, and so on. And fundamentally toward free time, toward the time where people have both the time and the resources to make use of that time to develop themselves, to do what they wish, to do something other than work for someone else for a wage. And now that's sort of a horizon. It's not a set of policy proposals. And in one of the tricky things, I think, in terms of answering this question of what's the difference between a socialist and a social democrat, there's different ways I could answer it. One way to answer it is a social democrat is someone who's interested in the project of essentially humanizing capitalism, of giving people guaranteed health care, guaranteed education, minimum wages, all that sort of thing that has happened under capitalism, is clearly possible under capitalism, but in many ways also presupposes that capital accumulation continues as it is now, because it relies on economic growth to create the profits and then the tax.
So they're actually arguing that Bernie Sanders is a capitalist. I mean, and he is. Bernie Sanders made a metric F ton of money selling books. So in theory, Bernie Sanders is indeed a capitalist. Incognito says, I love socialism, but I don't know what it is. Trust me. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. He basically is saying that people who are democratic socialists, he is literally presenting a webinar for the democratic socialists right now, where he's saying, everyone that's a democratic socialist, fuck you. You really believe in capitalism. You're upholding capitalism. And I am a pure socialist because I believe in the emancipation of people, even though he hasn't defined what that actually means yet.
Taxation that funds a welfare state. And that doesn't fundamentally challenge those property relations, the fact that the ownership of wealth and the control over investment is concentrated in the hands of the capitalist class and a capitalist state. And so the sort of socialist horizon beyond that would be one in which we actually, those things are challenged. And here, there's a complicated question about, what does that look like? I think.
Hang on. Sam, requiring services without pay equals slavery. Yes, Sam, that is correct. Thank you. And I want to point out too, Stephen has coined the term untrust. I fervently untrust these people. Love it.
A lot of people, in terms of in pop culture or in what you learn in school, have the imagination, well, socialism means the government, owns everything, nationalizes everything. And I think, in fact, there's a more complicated set of questions we have to ask about what are the alternatives to the capitalist form of economic organization. In some cases, nationalization.
Thank you, Jamie,
may be
for the
answer,
super sticker.
Like we're
I
talking
appreciate
about
it.
The power grid and taking it out of the hands of private monopolists and putting it towards, satisfying human need and addressing the climate crisis. In other cases, it may
Green
be
New
more of a form
Deal,
of a socialization,
drink.
of setting or of allowing sort of worker cooperatives or other kinds of
Hang
more
on.
decentralized forms of
Spoiler alert, worker cooperatives already exist. Worker cooperatives are allowed under our current system. They are just a really shitty business model. And they don't usually work. And then you have, by the way, like, has any of you ever heard of the idea of a holocracy? A holocracy is fascinating. Zappos royally fucked themselves when they started creating a holocracy at Zappos, which is basically, so the idea of a holocracy is this business model in which you get rid of bosses entirely. So, and Zappos actually spent several years adopting a holocracy in their business where they got rid of all bosses and they made everyone on the same level. And it actually ended up, they ended up losing about 30% of their workforce over this crap. And there was like all these morale issues. And I don't know what Zappos is doing now because I haven't checked into it lately. But there's also like a holocracy is basically a batshit insane business model in which it's kind of like it has kind of the same ramifications of people who do like a workers co-op. It's just absolutely crazy. Yeah, holocracy. Basically like HOLOCRACY. Yep. Emphasize says, I've had too much unsleep. Me too, Emphasize. The struggle is real. The struggle is real. Wait, did he really? Hallie, when did that happen? So I haven't looked into, I was following Zappos really closely for a couple of years because Zappos was like the first big company to totally transition their workforce to this holocracy crap. And so I was actually following them for a really long time. And I remember when Zappos made the decision to start a holocracy and I was like, that's not going to go well for reason X, Y, B, and Z. Oh, it only happened a few months ago? Yeah, it's a problematic business model, but this was like, I mean, I guess I hadn't even thought about this, but like this business model became the rage around like, I want to say like 2015, 2016. There was a book written about this, and then it became all the rage in like the startup world to develop these holocracy models. And I was always like, and this is back when I was like really focusing on organizational psychology. I was like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for reason X, Y, B, and Z. And apparently it didn't work. Told ya. Sorry. Too bad, so sad.
Capitalist or potentially non-capitalist ways of doing this. And then there are other things that's, there are forms of aspects of the economy that simply need to be abolished.
Peter says, because Peter's the King Peter of the chat, says, Carlin, do you have any thoughts on the employee-owned business model? I think the employee-owned business model can be effective, but it's also like you do still need structure and you do still need hierarchy. And it really just depends. I think that it can be very effective because I think that it says something that employees actually have buy-in to the success of the company. But it can also backfire in terms of like morale and teamwork and people understand. Sometimes hierarchy is actually a really good thing. People need that structure. And I think that when you have an employee-owned business model, sometimes the boundaries get really blurred and people actually think that they have more power than they frankly should, because if everyone is in charge, then no one is in charge. But it also just depends on the execution, it depends on the business, and it depends on the employee makeup. It can work really effectively. I've seen it go both ways. Kurt says it's also how the worker is the only one productive while the management is entirely parasitic. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. Listen, like, there are a lot of bad bosses out there. A lot of bad bosses. That's exactly right. The ship needs a captain. And it's not only the ship needs the captain and the captain needs the ship. It's like a reciprocal relationship. There's no like the boss is not objectively more valuable, but the boss has objectively more responsibility, which is why the boss usually gets paid more. But like both sides need each other. The employees need the captain of the ship just as much as the captain of the ship needs the employees.
Whether we're talking about, private health insurers or debt collectors or the police. So I think that those are the sort of the questions that a socialist has to address, even though in practice today in 2022, for me and most people in DSA, I think our day-to-day work is social democratic in the sense that we are demanding reforms in capitalism that we think are at least to some degree winnable in capitalism, even if what we're trying to do is to point ultimately beyond that. And I think my view of social democracy and of all those kinds of class compromises that arise in struggling for reforms under capitalism are always inherently unstable and pushed to a point, as we've seen in previous periods, say in the crisis of the 1970s, you invariably reach a point where the working class is sufficiently strong, capitalist profitability is sufficiently constrained that you have to either move toward a rupture with capitalism or, as we saw in the 1970s, a reactionary movement that pushes the working class back down, cuts back the gains that have been made. And so that is the dynamic that I think socialists have to be mindful of and have to be thinking of strategically as we try to figure out how to fight for reforms while also thinking beyond capitalism.
Thank you, Peter. So it's a movement that points beyond itself, even though we are currently struggling for more immediate demands. So a little bit of a puzzle here. Haddaz.
He's trying to cover for the fact that he did not provide a definition at all in any way.
How is it different from social democracy? Maybe you can help us out.
Okay, great. Well, I think what Peter said is great. And I would just add, I sort of said this earlier, right? But it's a funny comparison to talk about capitalism and socialism because one actually exists. And so you can talk about it very concretely. And then, socialism doesn't quite exist, or bits and pieces of it, socialistic policies and so on. And so it makes it kind of murky thing to have to pin down and define. And I think there's a lot of really interesting and good discussions and debates about any number of questions around what socialism is, how we get there, et cetera. And I think, there are a lot of really good ideas. This is sort of getting at what Peter was saying, where we can't just imagine, what we think socialism will be and create that in advance. There's a lot of really good ideas, I think, about how society could be structured if it wasn't done on the basis of profits. And it's not to say that we shouldn't have those ideas. I think that's important. And it's important because it highlights what is possible, and what we have, the material conditions, the science, the resources, all these things exist to make a very different kind of a world.
Neither of these people have given a clear definition for what is socialism and what is democratic socialism. Neither of these people have been given a clear definition. Yeah, exactly. Deborah's like salad. This is word salad. So she doesn't really have an answer either. It's like, if you're coming to do a presentation about capitalism and socialism for the Democratic Socialists of America, you have one job, and that is to provide a fucking definition.
I remember a few years back, I went to this exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York, where they had commissioned a few architectural firms to design models for towns in different parts of the country, which would incorporate, themes of affordable housing with economic and ecological sustainability. They had one project based in Orange, New York, which is a town that doesn't have, public transportation within it, but it's located along the regional New Jersey transit line. So the architects developed this model pedestrian city centered on the transit stop that basically gets rid of the roads and cars and fills in the space with these mixed use buildings and includes affordable housing and commercial and office space and public green spaces and so on. It was a very cool thing to look at. People work in walking distance from where they live. You get rid of streets. which are an economic burden on a struggling city, and cars, which are an ecological burden, obviously, on the planet, so on and so forth. There are a bunch of cool things about it. But the point being is that, we have there's no lack of inventive and well-researched ideas to tackle every one of the social ills created by capitalism. We have, all of the tools to actually rid the world of poverty, to build the material foundations that undermine division and bigotry. And it's
Wait, Sam says, confirm that is Marx in her background. Is it? Wait, how is that confirmed? Did I miss something? Did she say something? How is that confirmed that that's Marx? People seem pretty convinced it was Frederick Douglass. I could go either way. How is that confirmed? Is Sam having fun? Wait, Sam says I posted the picture of Marx that matched the painting. Hang on. Breaking news from Sam. Hang on. Sam has provided us a locals update. Hang on, I'm going to switch the screen for a second. Sam says, confirmed, this is a picture of Marx in the background. I mean, it does look like Marx. It does look like Marx. It also does look like Frederick Douglass, though. It does look like Marx. I think it's Marx. I really do. It makes more sense to me that it would be Marx. Like, this is like, this is like a hardcore Marxist. It makes more sense to me that it would be Marx than it would be Frederick Douglass. Although I understand that the reference to Frederick Douglass as well, but it does look black, doesn't it? I mean, Marx kind of does look like, Marx was very tan. What was Marx's heritage? I have no idea. I've not looked into Marx at all. What was Marx's heritage? I'm sure someone can answer. Rick says it's neither. Marx and blackface. Rick, what is your prediction then? I think Sam might be right. It does look like German. Oh, that makes sense. Like German. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I could go either way on it. I could see it as Marx. Yeah, this is what I'm like. Why would she have a Frederick Douglass portrait in her kitchen? Well, I mean, okay, so if Marx is Jewish, his skin might be more dark and more olive. Sam says he was Prussian. Average person says Marx was born in the Prussian Federation. Graphically, Alex says it's a picture of Ree. It's a very bad painting of Marx. So I was right. When I said it was a black Karl Marx, I was right. That's what really matters, is that I was right on my own stream. I'm going to embrace the Aries.
It's often talked about that what's missing is kind of like the political will to make these things happen, and that's true. But I think beneath the question of political will is the fundamental structure of capitalism that we talked about before, right? Private ownership over the means of production and the fruits of the production process. A small number of people determining what we do and how we do it, making decisions.
Heather says Marx is a 9th century neckbeard. Indeed he was, Heather. Indeed he was. Indeed he was.
Decisions that on the basis of maintaining and growing their own power. So a sort of definitional starting point for socialism is, whereas capitalism is based on a private ownership over the means of production, socialism is based on the collective ownership and democratic control over the economy. That the people who produce
Finally a definition.
Goods and services are the ones that should be, democratically deciding what we produce, under which conditions, what to do with the fruits of our labor.
Well, that should actually be included in capitalism if we're honest about it. Like, included in the idea of running a business is that you have employees that you are able to collect input from. You don't have the issue that these people have is not with is not with, yeah, Heather, I was picking up what you were putting 19th century. That's what I kind of thought you meant, but I didn't want to that's what I thought that's what I thought you meant. But like included in like employers ask for the input of their employees, like, well, if they're good leaders, they should ask for it like on a frequent basis. So in theory, that should actually be included in capitalism. It just seems to me like these, if I can be blunt, it kind of seems to me like these people have never really had jobs, like real jobs. And that's why they think that capitalism is one thing when in fact it's a whole other thing.
In a nutshell, socialism is workers' power instead of corporate power. And I think it's an important, point to emphasize as democratic socialists, that we're not just talking about collective ownership in the state of, in the sense of state ownership, right? You could have, state-run economies that are totally top-down and autocratic, and that doesn't bring us any closer to socialism. But we're talking about collective and democratic control over the economy. That there have been, states that have had state-led economies, but have resembled basically state capitalist regimes rather than socialist ones. So you have the state rather than an unregulated market managing a process still of exploitation, as we were talking about just before, right? That capitalism is a social relationship of exploitation. So in short, a society in which workers are in power rather than the elite few is the vision of socialism. The decisions that impact the vast majority of society should be made by the vast majority of society. And that has to include full economic democracy, because we can't have political democracy without economic democracy. I think there's a lot more to say about, social democracy. And I think Peter spoke to some of it. I'll just say, because I think I'm probably running at time, but I'll just say a couple very brief things about it, which is that, if you think about like the height of social democracy, like in the early 70s, we produced some of the most egalitarian societies in modern history, generous welfare states, a decent standard of living and low levels of income inequality and unemployment. All those things are very.
Did I miss the part where the United States was a socialist democracy in the 70s? Did I miss that? When was that? Are they just making this up? That's what she said, right? Is like, we were a social democracy like back in the day, and then the evil capitalist Reagan got elected? What the fuck is she talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Very, very good. And I would way prefer to live in a social democratic society than like American style, like
then leave.
Free market type of society.
Then leave. Then leave. Go live in Sweden. Like you have the ability to pick up. Okay, people are saying she wasn't talking about the US. Okay, apparently I'm just not paying attention. Like Jamie says that's a Frederick Douglass pick with a bow tie is the same. I don't know, Jamie. We thought it was Frederick Douglass at first. Now we think it's Marx. I could go either way. I honestly don't really care. But Jamie has weighed in with saying it's Frederick Douglass. Yeah, dude, you are allowed to leave the United States. If you don't want to live in the United States, go live somewhere else. Like, it's really not that hard. Go live somewhere else. You go live in North Korea if you want. I mean, North Korea might take her because, like, I mean, it's like an American, right? That they can hold up as being an American that defected to North Korea. There's already an American there that's like, I mean, he's been there for a while. At least the last time I knew. I haven't been paying close attention to North Korea. That's really more Michael Malice's territory. But, like, there was an American that, like, defected to North Korea, and they, like, made him as part of, like, the leadership because they wanted to hold him up as a propaganda. I bet North Korea would take her. She can go live there. She can go live in Venezuela. There are any number of countries that you can go live in that are not America.
not just as a matter of personal preference, although I, would much prefer having healthcare and paid leave than not. But, these are life and death things, whether people are left to die outside a hospital door because they're uninsured, or children are allowed to go hungry in the richest country in the world, and so on. But I think that, the issue then is that we should, as, socialists, go all in for fighting for these kind of reforms, at the same time that we also build towards something that's deeper and more radical. Because, both because we could have so much more, but also just fundamentally, history has shown us that maintaining a state in the face of a still entrenched power of capital is not realizable. That's not a long-term solution. And that's really been the experience of Western social democracy, where, while there's a mobilized working class and while the economy was flush, like in the post-war period, that made reforms more possible at the height of social democracy. But then in periods of economic downturn and like a boss's offensive, that
A boss's offensive?
created the conditions in which many of those reforms
What does that
were rolled
mean?
back and actually took a neoliberal turn. So I think, to respond to economic crisis and capital on the offensive requires a more radical socialism to go further than what the bosses ultimately are willing to go.
Thank you. Those are great points. And in particular, I was really interested in what you had to say about how decisions are being made, economic democracy and political democracy. as
AD
both being
says there are 80 plus federal welfare programs. Thank you, AD.
equally important parts of socialism.
Yeah.
I think one thing.
See, Jamie's now changing her tune. Wow, found a Karl Marx pick. I think it's Marx. I stand by my first instinct, which is that it was Marx. And I understand it does look like Frederick Douglass. It does look like that was a good guess too, but it's got to be Marx. There is no way it's not Marx. No way it's not Marx.
We've all noticed, if you're on the call, you've likely noticed this, that the institutions of government and the economy just seem to end up playing out in such a way that the wealthy and powerful end up even more wealthy and even more powerful.
Guys, please remember to mount that like button if you're enjoying the stream.
We actually have control and the government is answerable to us ordinary working class people. That will not be the case, right? So where the power lies is so important. We have only about 7 minutes left. So in 3 minutes or so, I want to ask one more big question, a practical question, which is...
Just a note, there is way more of this presentation left than 7 minutes. Just a note, like we're not remotely close yet.
In your view, what has DSA been doing that has been most effective? And what should we all be doing going forward? So Hadass, I'll kick this over to you first.
Okay, great. Well, I think this is definitely one of those things where I'm humbled by the experience of DSA, and I mentioned earlier I've been a socialist for a long time, but I've only been a member of DSA for a couple of years, so I certainly do not envision myself as having all the big answers to those questions. But I think one thing that I really appreciate about what DSA has done and increasingly does more and more really well is this idea of like an inside-outside approach, right? That we have in the long run a two-pronged struggle where we can contest for power within the state through elections and legislative reforms, and then also building power outside of the state through social movements, workplace organizing, building institutions of direct democracy. And the goal is to do both.
I mean, I still continue to wonder, are these the mysterious socialist libertarians that I keep hearing so much about as real things, but I don't think they're real things? I don't know. Maybe I'll do a perusal of their YouTube channel after we get done with this, and we can see if these are the mysterious socialist libertarians. Sam says, Black Karl Marx is very inclusive and equitable. Indeed he is, Sam. Indeed he is.
And to build enough, and that both for the purpose of building enough organizational and political strength to take on an entrenched corporate elite. So you have, like, on the one hand, socialist legislators that can give confidence to movements and can implement, at least some reforms that help to shift the terrain in favor of workers' organization. And then you have, on the other hand, like, bases of popular power outside of the state that allow socialists to push the political processes further than, state bodies are willing to go without mass pressure. So I think that, we're at the beginning stages of that process in a lot of ways. But I think that, DSA going all in on Bernie's campaigns helped to mobilize much greater numbers of people into political life.
Wow. Bernie.
I think that some of the work that local DSA electeds have done, working with DSA chapters and grassroots organizations to win local reforms, has been really, really great. Here where I live in New York, some of the elected socialist officials, along with the DSA chapters, were instrumental in winning, tax the rich, progressive taxation.
If it's
helped
not Mark,
lead a
she thinks it
coalition that
is.
stopped a gas
Good point,
fracking plant
George.
recently here in
Great point.
Queens. Ongoing work among housing activists.
Ooh, hang on.
for-
We have a hater. We have a hater in the chat. I'm not going to block him yet. Marshall says, that lady is a nice lady. Y'all are just some white ass crackheads. We have people here that aren't white. I don't know. I mean, maybe. It's entirely possible, I suppose. But welcome, Marshall. I mean, you're welcome to give your opinion in the chat if you would like. Just don't be Marshall. The rule is you can say whatever you want, but just don't be a dick. That is the rule.
for better tenants protections, that has then been
average
amplified and
personization.
pushed forward by socialist electeds in Albany.
Brian is Latino.
And so on and so forth. So I think that has been really effective, and I think that we can do much more of that.
Marshall, what did I tell you, Marshall? What did I tell you? The only rule is don't be a dick. Shut your white lesbian mouth. You got smell coming from between your teeth. Oh, Marshall. Dude. Last chance, Marshall. Last chance. No insulting people in my chat, especially me. But this is actually kind of amusing me at the moment, so I'm not going to block him just yet. Incognito identifies as a popsicle. What kind of popsicle, Incognito?
I think we're at the beginning stages. And I think, for each member and each chapter, things look differently in terms of
Peter.
What opportunities there are. But
I would have let you just this once, Peter. Just
DSA
this once.
Chapters are involved in a lot of different work, and finding the place where, each person and each chapter can contribute, whether that's through the chapter or working groups and so on, to be part of collective discussions, to continue to learn and debate with each other in comradely ways about, what the priority should be, and so on. And then ultimately to kind of be able to keep our eyes on the prize about what kind of world it is that we're fighting for, who else we can get involved, who else we can collaborate with in order to get there, and ultimately, for the fight for a better world.
Inspiring words.
They were not
Peter,
inspiring at all. That is fake
question,
news.
that
They're
is,
not inspiring at all.
What has DSA been doing that has been most effective, and what should DSA and DSA members?
Marshall, Sam is a white person of color. He's a white person of color, according to Robin DiAngelo. Marshall says, I'm from the right here in the South, and I got a gat for you. You got a problem. What the fuck is a gat? What is a gat? Marshall, are you the one that's been spamming my email pretending to act like a conservative? Is that you, buddy? I'm glad you've come around, Peter. There is a method to my madness. Perhaps it unfolds over time, but there is a method to my madness. Oh, a gat is a gun. Oh, okay. So Marshall is threatening me? Marshall, if you want to threaten me, honey, you can come down to my house and you'll be looking down the barrel of a gun right quick, honey. You'll be looking down the barrel of a gun right quick. All right, Marshall has overstayed his welcome. The minute you threaten violence, you get the block. Goodbye, Marshall. That was fun while it lasted.
Be doing in the immediate future to build towards socialism. So over to you before audience.
And Incognito says he identifies as a meat popsicle. A gat is a Gatling machine. Oh, a Gatling gun. Oh. Okay. Well, too bad we won't be able to enjoy Marshall anymore. Goodbye, Marshall.
Questions after this.
Sure. So, unlike us, I've been in DSA for more than 20 years. And so compared to most of that time.
God. Peter, I forget what Victor's gun is off the top of my head. No, it's not. It's fuck, what the fuck is it? I forget off the top of my head, Peter. But I posted it on the community page on my other channel. I just forget it off the top of my head. But it is not a Croatian Glock. It is not. No, Victor does have an AR-15, but the pistol he got is obviously not an AR. No, it's not no, it's not, I forget. Hang on, let me text Victor real quick. Let me text Victor and ask him, what is your gun again? People in the chat want to know. Victor will text me back with an answer expeditiously.
Everything his DSA is doing looks fantastic. I was in this organization for a long time, and it was 6,000 members, most of whom were, over 65 years old. So that's all great. I mean, I think all the things that I said are true. I mean, DSA.
Victor is texting me back right now. Hang on. Yeah. Make the like button go to HR. Guys, please mount that like button. Come on. Mount the like button if you're enjoying the stream. Victor's taking his sweet time answering this question. I'll tell you that. Yes. Incognito, you're going to start rumors. I already have enough rumors started about me. Okay, so Victor's gun is a Walther PDP compact 5-inch barrel 9mm. That is the gun that he bought with all of his super chats from the stream we did a little while back. A Walther, hang on, I'll chat it in so you guys can see. There it is. And I got to shoot it the other weekend, and I was very pleased. It was a fun gun to shoot, and Victor's going to take me and buy me my own pistol, and he's going to make me try a lot of varieties so I know I get one that I like. I'm excited. It was fun to shoot that gun. I was surprised. It shooting the pistol was like more fun to me than it had much more like I guess oomph than even like the AR. Shooting the AR was fun too, but I enjoyed shooting the pistol more.
Is probably most famous for its electoral work. Obviously, the Bernie campaign was a huge jumpstart to modern DSA. I do think, though, and I'm speaking mostly from the perspective of my own local context in my chapter, DSA has been better than some of the kind of national or internet debates would lead you to believe at creating a space where we do good electoral work, but that we don't become simply an electoral operation or an appendage of a politician's office, and that people who are doing mutual aid work and forging connections on the ground in people's lives are doing that work and doing it in relationship to the people that are doing the policy work, doing the electoral work. I think that that's something DSA has. It's difficult and it doesn't always work, but I do think people underestimate sometimes the degree to which that does happen, and it's very valuable. I want to say too, I think something that is maybe a little more abstract, but that I think is very important about what DSA is and what it does. One of which is providing the kind of ideological structure that we're sort of filling out here that binds people to a politics that goes beyond individual.
Hang on. Incognito, Victor's gun doesn't have a safety. It just like, it's like, I don't know what it's called, but so Victor's gun doesn't actually have a safety. I don't know. I don't know that much about guns. I should not be answering. I've almost had my 10% beer, so I'm starting to get a little buzz. So if I say, okay, I cannot be responsible. Victor's texting me something right now. He's going to clarify the safety issue. I cannot be held responsible for anything I say moving forward on this stream. We're still going to finish the Oh, Victor says it has trigger safety. All right, moving on.
Candidates or campaigns or policies, understanding
Victor.
Something that's going to keep us in it for the long haul. I wouldn't be here, 25 plus years later after calling myself a socialist if I didn't have a sort of framework to link together what, the individual struggles that I'm involved with on a day-to-day to a larger project. And I think DSA provides that in a way very few organizations in the United States left can. I also think it's very important in just creating a space where people are engaged in collective projects of solidarity together, which keeps people grounded in what real politics is about and not get sucked into like internet rabbit holes. I find that people who are bound to an actual work of the chapter
Don't you dare get
running
sucked
off
into
on
those
some,
internet
like,
rabbit
Facebook
holes.
nonsense or whatever, because they're already in contact, in solidarity with people doing work on the ground, and that's really, really important. And I don't think we should underestimate that. And in terms of what people should be doing, I would say two things. One thing is just sort of like get involved in the organizing, but also get involved in stuff like this, the political education component. If you're somebody like me, who's a socialist of the HX section, likes the books, likes the theory, get out there and knock doors, or do, go out there, serve food at the mutual aid event, whatever it is, make the phone calls, and vice versa. If you're somebody who's just out there in the trenches every day doing the work, maybe come and bring some of the insight you learned from that back to the spaces where we can stand back and reflect and build that ideological structure that's going to keep us going in the long run. And finally, just, do all that unglamorous work of organizing that's not public and not fancy, whether it's making the calls, maintaining the, the spreadsheets, providing childcare, giving rides, all that kind of stuff, which again, I think is ultimately very rewarding, but also is like what makes our movement go and what makes it something.
This guy is just making shit up. This is not a question that was asked. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Something that can actually challenge capitalism and change the world, as grandiose as that sounds.
Sam says, collective projects of solidarity equals zero individuality. Correct.
Thank you, Peter. I think that's a great...
And I want to acknowledge Alexandra, too. Alexandra, well, I'm off to deliver my patients now, so we'll lose service for soon. Good night, y'all. Everyone mount that like button extra lovingly for King Peter of the chat. Take care, Alexandra.
Note to move into audience questions on, as someone who also likes reading books, and especially books about socialist theory. I think it's an important call to remind folks who do like that side of socialism to get out there, start small, even with the text bank, a phone bank, whatever is manageable for you. But doing that work, being engaged in the organizing work of the chapter really does change your perspective and make more explicit, more concrete what it is that we're talking about in all of that theory. So in that spirit, moving into the questions. We've had many questions from the audience. I want to start us off with this question. How would you respond to someone who responds to the question of capitalism, to critiques of capitalism, with statements like, quote, "So you think people who work hard should make the same as people who don't work hard?"
Oh, that's a good question.
Or more generally, I think
question.
The spirit of the question is, how do we respond to capitalist arguments? What are the most effective capitalist arguments, and how can socialists defuse those arguments? In particular, you think that people who work hard should make the same as people who don't work hard. Yeah. So over to you, Hadas. how would you respond to that question, to that answer, and more generally to capitalist arguments?
Sure. I like to just kick them in the shins. No, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is that actually under capitalism, the people who work the least are often the people that are rewarded the most, and vice versa.
Wrong.
You know, we've had all this discussion since the pandemic began, where
Wrong.
we're finally talking about the workers and the working class. That's something that is often missing in mainstream discussion in this country. But through the course of the pandemic, we've been talking about essential workers, that grocery workers, delivery workers, logistic workers are much more central to making the system tick than, the Jeff Bezos of the world and so on. And I think that is clear. But on the other hand, it's those same, essential workers that have also been like spit out and hung out to dry, that haven't been paid hazard pay, that are being forced to work.
She's not answering the question.
All of these things, while Jeff Bezos, gets joy rides to outer space and so on. So I think that, if you're worried that that's a problem, that the people that, work hard will be.
I mean, the irony of this is that Jeff Bezos probably supports her position more than most of the people who work for Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, Washington Post, probably supports her position more in society, probably has done more to advance her position than people who work for Jeff Bezos.
Rewarded the same as the people that don't work hard. Well, capitalism is a much bigger problem in that case for you than socialism. And I think, the bigger point is that actually, if we lived, it's the assumption that some people are lazy and some people work hard and all this stuff. There's so much that is, read into that is really about capitalism and alienation, and so on and so forth, that it's hard for us to imagine a society that is actually democratically run, that meets people's needs, that
Really, because you seem to be doing okay with your $700 mixer right behind you. Sam says he paid to build the freaking spaceship, not free. Exactly. These people really have no sense of what it takes to run a business. They really don't.
has everyone participate and actually be part of deciding what kind of work they
No,
want to
they're
do,
not going to answer the questions.
and what's meaningful and fulfilling to them, and what makes the world a better place.
If they want to do work that is meaningful and fulfilling to them, then they can go find a job that is meaningful and fulfilling for them. And if they cannot find a job working for someone else that is meaningful and fulfilling for them, then they can create their own business that is meaningful and fulfilling for them. What these people don't talk about is that under socialism, there will be no option to create a job that is meaningful and fulfilling for you if the state does not provide you with that job. Yeah, Emily says she really has never had a job. You can tell there will always be lazy workers. That is exactly right, Emily. Peter says this is a classic example of how socialists respond. Instead of talking about the system they want to implement, they challenge the premise and critique capitalism. Is this a named fallacy? And Sam says Jeff Bezos built nationwide second day shipping and delivery. That's pretty impressive. Come on, who doesn't love Amazon Prime? Who doesn't love Amazon Prime? Even if we hate Amazon, we love Amazon Prime. It's true. Also, I'm sorry, but like Amazon, like the video on demand thing, so much better than Netflix. You can find some of the craziest shit on Amazon Prime Video that is not available anywhere else. Best resource for that, I think.
That people actually, it's a very human thing to want to work, and humans have done it for all of human history. But it's capitalism that kind of alienates us from work, and alienates us from any kind of creative and thriving work that we could do. We have enough technology where actually all of us could work way, way less and have much more leisure time. And I think, I think we'll find that for the time that we do have to work, where we're not totally alienated during that time, that actually people will work to the best of their ability.
By the way,
thank you, Hadas.
people are talking about Cuba in the chat. Kurt says these people do not want Cuba. They want their mommy to pay for their toys again. Did you guys hear there was a giant explosion at a hotel in Cuba today? I was seeing video of it on Twitter. Like, it was legit. It was a big explosion.
There's a lot of, a lot to unpack. There's so many important thoughts.
I wonder, has Biden opened up travel to Cuba again? I would actually, okay, this is selfish. I would actually really like to go to Cuba. I know it's selfish. I know it's not probably the thing that I should want, but I actually really do want to go to Cuba. So I would actually be pretty psyched if Biden opened up travel to Cuba again. Not gonna lie. He's going to do it at some point. I want to go on a cruise to Cuba.
But I just a minor point I want to comment on, because it is funny that advocates of capitalism will attack socialists for defending people who don't work, when in fact it is capitalism that rewards people who aren't working. I mean,
that's not
the
true.
Heads of corporations, they're not in the office every day. They can just not go in one day. And
do these people think that CEOs just take vacation all the time? CEOs work ridiculous. Even if CEOs aren't in the office, they're still working. My God, CEOs put up all the capital for the fucking business. They work all the time. They don't have set hours. They don't work 40 hours a week. They work 60, 80 hours a week. That's the price you pay for being a CEO.
go play golf. They're not working. They're on the golf course, right?
Oh my God.
So,
these people literally
let
think
me
CEOs
kick
just
the
play
same
golf all
question
day.
To Peter, how would you respond to someone who has these kinds of questions about socialism? And more generally, what are the best arguments that you've heard from our ideological opponents, and how would you respond to them?
Sure. So, I mean, my first reaction to this idea of like socialists don't want to reward people who work hard. What is the society that you are familiar with where people are rewarded for their hard work? Because I'm not. I've never encountered it. And also, but I would go further than that and say that,
it's a funny thing. I generally have found that the harder I work, the more lucky I get. These people are literally teaching people that you don't have to work hard in order to get ahead in the world. My God. They just don't want to work. That's what it is. They just don't want to get a job.
hard work as such is not a virtue and it is not something to be praised.
What?
There is necessary work, and we should value.
No, wrong. Hard work is a virtue. The only time that you have satisfaction, personal satisfaction, emotional satisfaction, is when you work hard to achieve a goal. Hard work is a virtue in and of itself. The only time that you feel any personal fulfillment in achieving a goal is if you have to work hard to get there. If a goal is easy to attain, it is not worth doing.
Value the people that do it, and do it all in an egalitarian way. But like the valorization of hard work as such is a part of the ideological mystification of capitalism that I think we have to break through.
Wow.
It's a way
there
to
it
just
is,
sort
isn't
of
it? There it is, right
convince
there.
people that their sort of suffering is somehow virtuous, and also to glamorize.
Now, I will say this. I don't necessarily believe that you need to work hard to make money. I don't believe that. I believe that if you can find a job that you love, if you can create a business that you love, that is personally fulfilling, that you're excited to get out of bed and do, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life. So I don't necessarily, doesn't he look like a demon there? I don't necessarily believe that you need to work hard in order to make money. You need to work smart. You need to make sure you're focusing your energy on things that matter. You need to make sure you are providing a product that is marketable. You need to make sure you're providing something that people are willing to pay money for. But none of that means that you need to work hard. None of that means you need to work hard. You just need to be focused and you need to be strategic about what you're doing. But to say that you like can make money, it's just like these people just don't want to get a job. You don't need to suffer in order to make money. You don't need to suffer at a job.
As things that might be difficult, but are also in no way worthy of praise. Look, I have no doubt that it takes a lot of hard work and planning and cleverness to figure out how to scam people out of their life savings with cryptocurrency or whatever. But I'm not interested in praising
They think
that.
cryptocurrency is a scam.
What I am interested in doing is figuring out how we can reduce the amount of work all of us have to do and figure out how to share in a more just way and reward in a more just way the work that does have to be done, right? I don't want to reward the hard works, quote unquote, of my local police department. I would like to reward the hard work of the people who pick up my garbage. That's an important distinction, I think.
Wait, what?
And so I think actually getting, one of my favorite sort of dissidents.
So you're saying that some work is more valuable to you than other work based on your personal preference. Listen, man, I'm not gonna say that garbage collectors don't work hard. Garbage collectors probably work harder than most of us work. They should be rewarded for their work. Their work sucks. But he's blatant. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, these people. Yeah, Patrice, it sounds like he's lost some money on crypto. Listen, we've all lost money on crypto lately. Buy the dip. It's going to go back up, folks. Buy the dip. You're getting it on sale.
In socialist essays is Paul Lafargue's The Right to Be Lazy. So that's where I come at on these questions, is like the less hard work, the better, though I recognize that sometimes hard work has to be done and we should share it in an egalitarian way. Beyond that, in terms of what are the arguments for capitalism, I still think, the arguments that come back most commonly and that are probably most appealing to people are that capitalism will make you free and make you rich, in the sense that capitalism gives you economic growth.
I agree,
and
Alex.
That
I
gives you
agree.
freedom compared to what's perceived to be
I agree.
the sort of state oppression or, kind of bureaucracy of socialism. And,
why do socialists hate crypto? Why? I'm sure I feel like Kurt will have an answer for this. Kurt, why do socialists hate crypto?
there, I think it's just important to point out that economic growth, well, first of all, has not actually been that great in recent periods, and it's growth that benefits the rich, and that, going back to the work question, hard work does not in general pay off. Mostly the people who are rich stay rich and get richer. One of the geniuses of capitalism is you can always point to somebody that started from nothing.
Kurt says, this is very profound, very profound. Socialists hate crypto because it's money, and they hate money. All right, fair enough, Kurt. Thank you. Vampire says socialists hate crypto because it's not government controlled.
And got rich, but that is not generalizable. That is not the way it works for most people. And in terms of freedom, well, in many parts, for most people, working people, you spend most of your waking hours in a situation, the workplace, where you are not free at all.
You are
and that's
free.
Sort of the freedom
You're
at
free
the heart of
to not
capitalism.
accept that
so the
job.
argument for it being a free society relies upon ignoring that big elephant in the middle of the room, which is the boss and the workplace. And so I think when you identify those two myths, sort of the myth that capitalism leads to prosperity and the myth that capitalism is the only system consistent with freedom, then you can start to sort of break down the ideological hold that it can still have on some people.
That was, I feel like you were on fire in that answer.
Oh my
Peter,
God, he just made a whole bunch of shit up that didn't mean anything.
Not all
That's
hard
what
work
just
is
happened.
necessarily good. I mean, a hardworking scam artist might be even worse than a lazy scam artist, you could say, right? So really great answers. Really appreciate both of those. We have a couple of questions that have come in on how local chapters can navigate ideological disagreement, right? How can we avoid gridlock in local chapters? Often, we're all coming into.
Yeah, Kurt is making a good point here. He says, oh, no, not that one. He said he has order of operations backward. Freedom leads to capitalism, not the other way around. I agree, Kurt. I agree.
This work, often not having a lot of experience in politics. I think that's one of the things that makes DSA great, but it also means that there's a learning curve in learning how to organize a chapter, how to get work done in political activism and organizing on the local level. So Hadass, what would you say to someone about how to navigate those ideological disagreements, how to build a healthy chapter culture that can move strategically in their area?
Sure. I mean, one thing that I would say is just, before I was in DSA, I spent many years in an organization that I think was, did a lot of good work, but was also, I think, overly confident in having a particular, having the right answers. And I think ultimately that was a real disservice to both the organization, but also like the movement beyond, the movement in general. And that one of the things that I love about DSA is that there's room for all sorts of.
Emphasize is being a contrarian. And Emphasize says, y'all think crypto isn't government controlled. Well, it's not at the moment, Emphasize, and Lord willing, it stays that way. Though they certainly are trying, aren't they? They certainly are trying.
Positions and disagreements, and I think that it is both a strength, but it also means that the onus is on us to be able to have comradely debates, and part of that is having more of having certain humility, that there aren't like just right answers. Obviously we want to get to the closest approximation of what we think will be effective. It's not just like any answer is fine or whatever, but that we want to approach every discussion and debate with a certain level of humility and a willingness to change positions and to learn. That's something that I feel like I unlearned a more
Emphasize says, why did the government have to get involved to get back the 4.5 billion in crypto that was stolen? I don't know the answer to that, Emphasize, because I'm not a crypto expert. Unlike Patrice says, no, I just think idiots who don't understand crypto shouldn't buy crypto. Maybe I'm one of those idiots that didn't understand crypto that bought crypto anyway. I have no regrets. I have no regrets at all.
rigid approach to and really love about a lot of.
Hang on, I just finished my first 10% beer. Wow. That was a big beer. Listen, man. Pipe Dream Snickerdoodle Stout. This is no joke of a beer. I'm getting a little buzzed already, but what I'm going to do next is open that blueberry sour that came in second, because why not? You guys voted for it. I don't want to disappoint Patrice. Patrice is our queen of sass for the week for super chatting me into Tim Pool. So we're going to open our blueberry raspberry sour called Secret Wizard Handshake. This is from a brewing company in Manchester, New Hampshire, Two Share Brewing Company. I'm not drunk, Alex. Don't spread fake news. Don't spread fake news. Alex, the queen of the troll, or the king of the troll. I don't mean to misgender you, Alex. I apologize. All right, let's see how this sour tastes. Or at least how it looks. I bet it's going to be pretty. Ooh, it is so pretty. It's another pink beer. It's got a good head. A good head on it. It definitely smells sourly. Okay, Alex confirms that he is a queen. Okay, I don't feel so bad now. It definitely smells soury. It smells raspberry. I have not had half a beer. I've had a full 10% beer, Brian. Don't spread fake news. Yeah, Vampire says, we can tell you're not drunk because you're not, I'm not shouting yet. I mean, maybe we'll get there. Who knows? Who knows? All right, let's see. Oh my god, that's definitely a sour. It's one of those, like, I feel like I just ate a Sour Patch Kid. It's definitely a sour. I like the fruitiness of it, though. I definitely taste the blueberry. Look, it got darker as it poured, as it settled. Oh, I'm half a beer from being drunk. Sorry, Brian. Yeah, that's probably true. Yep, that's probably true. It is. I like it. I like the blueberry raspberry beer. I do. All right, let's keep going.
What happens in DSA with within my branch.
Oh
and
god, a
within,
Sour Patch!
with other
No!
comrades. So I think that that's one thing as a general rule of thumb, right, is to treat your
Lydia would never actually commit to that boxing match. Lydia would never. You LK says you haven't challenged anyone to a charity boxing match, so you're clearly not. Lydia would never agree to that boxing match for real. Lydia, I want a signed agreement. I want a signed agreement, Lydia. I don't know why I'm so mad at, like, the truth is, I don't actually really care about Lydia either way. I just think this is kind of funny that Lydia has accidentally gotten roped into this whole thing because she said I was misled. I'm still annoyed that Lydia said Carlin is misled. Please. I'm misled? Who's misleading me? Who exactly is misleading me? I don't watch any videos. I don't talk to anyone. I look at information and I make my own conclusions. God. Well, if Lydia wants to come to Porkfest and have a charity boxing match at Porkfest, I guess I could be game. We just need to plan it in advance so I know what time not to be stoned. Yeah, Lydia was not being serious. Oh, God. We don't need to... You guys are going to trick me into having a charity boxing match, aren't you? This is the moment where I make a joke on a live stream in Locals, and then I follow up with that joke on a live stream in YouTube, and then suddenly the joke becomes real. This is how the internet works. All of a sudden something is a joke, and it becomes a real thing. It's Patrice's fault. It is. It is. God.
comrades as your comrades and keep your eyes on the prize of like who the enemy is, you know, that we're trying to take on capitalism, not, you know, that there are lots of debates that we could feel very invested in and that are, you know, important, but that it's not your comrades or other people on the left that are the main problem. And so I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is just having some patience with ourselves, patience with our chapters as we learn this stuff, and ultimately, you know, patience with the process more broadly. You know, we would all love for
I would beat
class
Lydia's
struggle to
ass in a
be,
charity boxing match.
explosive.
It would
and
happen.
It makes it much clearer, you know, what our role is as socialists, to
Beat
take part in
Lydia's
those
ass.
struggles and so on and so forth. And
She's too
we are
timid.
coming from a place in the United States, in particular, where the left has really been hobbled for quite some decades. You know, where
Wait, what?
the labor movement.
Hang on. Did she just say the left has been hobbled for decades? Excuse me, what? Have we entered the realm of making shit up?
Class struggle to be explosive, and then it makes it much clearer, what our role is as socialists, to take part in those struggles and so on and so forth. And we are coming from a place in the United States in particular where the left has really been hobbled for quite some decades.
What? This is why the left is so dangerous, because they truly and really believe that they are the oppressed in the United States. They truly and really believe that they are oppressed. The left has been hobbled for decades. Are you effing kidding me?
Where the labor movement, working class struggles have been really beaten down. And so we're beginning to see coming out of that. And the last few years have been some really important steps forward. But we need to have a little bit of patience, a little bit of humility, and a lot of comradeliness to move forward.
Comradeliness. That's our new word.
Thanks, Hadas.
Comradeliness.
I think
Can we
that's
come
a
up?
very
Can we
thoughtful answer.
Can we come up with our own Carlintology version of comradeliness? The haters on Twitter would love that. Comradeliness. We need to come up with a nickname for each other, like Comrade, but not quite. Maybe Comrade with a K. I don't want to start any rumors about being a socialist or anything, but a
reminder for us all to be patient with our comrades, with each other, because we all share that common enemy in the boss, right? So Peter, same question. How can we best navigate ideological disagreements and avoid gridlock in chapters?
I guess, not to repeat things that I said, because I think that's all quite right. And I think learning to have comradely debate is a thing. Most of us, we've not had a lot of experience in other realms of our life with having sharp intellectual disagreement and sometimes getting the better of the argument and sometimes not, and moving on in a constructive way. And that's all, we have to just be mindful of that we're all learning that still. I think for me, what it comes back to in the context of something like DSA is maintaining that tie to
oh my God.
our common political work.
Hang on. Gala, comradely. Is that too much like Benjamin Boyce? Like conversations? I don't want to crib Benjamin. I have too much respect for that. I do like Patrice's suggestion of comrade. I kind of like that. If I have to be honest, I do. Comrade. We're not doing anything with KKK. That's not a good idea. We're not going down that particular road, Vampire. I appreciate it, but we can't. No. We'll figure it out.
Collectively
Keep
together.
brainstorming, please.
People always will talk about, theory and practice together, or praxis, or the dialectic of theory and practice. And that's a slogan that gets thrown around, but it's a real thing. And I think it's really important to think of these things in terms of, how does this relate to common work that we're doing, first of all, but also it's not to say that every ideological disagreement has to be immediately about the day's activism, but ideally you're having these disagreements with people who are also your comrades in struggle. The people that
people seem to be congregating around the idea of comrade. My maiden name began with an M. My maiden name was Morissette. So maybe comrade, like car M rad, might not be bad. Comrade. Oh God, this definitely is not going to start any rumors on the internet at all. Nothing could go wrong with this plan. We're not going to start any rumors on the internet at all with comrade. Wow.
You are day-to-day working with. And I want to be mindful here not to say that, you have to do X amount of phone banks before you're allowed to have an ideological disagreement with someone. People are coming from different places, different capacities, different abilities to participate in different ways. I just think we should all be mindful all the time when we're having disagreements that we not let them become sort of untethered from the collective project that we are all hopefully trying to be engaged with each other. Because I think that it's a lot harder to let things become extremely bitter and personal if you are still seeing the person you're disagreeing with as someone you're also going out and, you know, doing the mutual aid event with on that Sunday, or going out and knocking doors with. I think that is the sort of material reality of what keeping theory and practice together looks like. And it's why, again, I think the culture of DSA chapters where people are in collective struggle together is much healthier than like what you see on Twitter.
Oh my
because
God. Hang on.
it has
Hang
that
on.
practice to bind.
Hang on, Patrice. The unwoke Carmi. The unwoke Carmi? Are you shitting me? And then everyone gets to be a comrade? Hang on, I'm writing this down so I don't forget it. Hang on, hang on. Unwoke. I can still type, I think, probably. Unwoke, Carmi, and then comrades. Wow. Wow. I think we found it, folks. I think we did it. I think we did it. I think we, John Morgan, I understand your point too, but karma-rads just doesn't roll off the tongue like comrades. Wow. Okay.
People together and to keep those ideological disagreements from just sort of spinning out of control and becoming overly personalized.
Thank you. Yeah, that's another great point. You know, working together really in getting to know each other really helps to navigate disagreements that aren't personal attacks, understand where we just have a difference of opinion, and that's okay. So moving on to another theme that emerged from audience questions. I know this is on a lot of DSA members' minds. The reality is, you know, we want to organize the entire working class, the multiracial working class.
Ooh,
but DSA members
the
are concerned about
multiracial
the
working
fact
class.
that on the whole, the organization is not as diverse as the working class as a whole, right? We need to be better at organizing in communities outside.
Are the Democratic Socialists of America admitting that they're a bunch of white people? Is that what just happened? Did the Democratic Socialists of America literally just admit that they were all white? I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, average person's like, watch us all unironically become a cult. No, that's not going to happen. I will not allow that to happen. If I feel like you guys are going to be becoming a cult, I will just start being a dick to every single one of you. I will break my own rule. I will break my own don't be a dick rule, and I will start like just telling off all of you at random just to test whether or not you're becoming if this is becoming too much of a cult of personality, then I'll just start telling you off and telling you to fuck off. And we'll see if you do. And if you don't, I'll be like, I'm disbanding the whole thing. This is actually turning into a cult. It's gone too far. No, we're not becoming a cult. That's not going to happen. Patrice is still telling me off. Well, at least Patrice is still telling me off. I mean, that tells me something.
Our own in order to address this problem. So, Hadaz, any thoughts? How can we address diversity in DSA? And are there any lessons to be learned from what we've already discussed?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, and I think it's a tough challenge because it is not just reflective of the state of DSA. It's reflective of the state of the left in general, which tends to be pretty segregated, and it's reflective of of our society, right? The left reflects our society, which is deeply segregated.
What?
And so,
How is our
you know,
society
there's
segregated?
not an
What are you
easy
talking about?
shortcut through that.
That is not
problem.
true.
It's
That is a
it's
lie.
a challenge that we have to get better and better at addressing, but it's a challenge that we didn't create. You know, it's a deeper problem that DSA and the left more generally is reflective of. One thing that I think is important is that the more that we become implanted in the neighborhoods, communities, and workplaces that we're in, the more we have the opportunity to actually change the composition of the organization, right? The working class itself, as you said, is a multiracial working class. And so the more we are implanted, the more we come to reflect that. You know, and then I think the second part of that is that, you know, there has to be special attention paid to making sure that we prioritize particular struggles and, you know, particular political and ideological questions. You know, during the eruption of Black Lives Matter protests.
There it
I
is.
guess it's now December of 2020. You know, the extent to which
No, it's
DSA
before that.
chapters were able to throw themselves into those protests. I know in New York that was a big priority and a huge part of what we did. You know, continuing to kind of forefront those struggles, forefront the struggle here in New York around housing issues, you know, and gentrification, good cause eviction, you know, that where we can forefront the policies that most impact, you know, the multiracial working class, we're able to, you know, make a difference, you know, and simultaneously help to change the composition of the organization as well.
Thanks. Over to you, Peter. Same question. Any lessons from what we've discussed so far on how to address diversity in DSA?
Well, yeah. So
wait.
one thing that has not changed
Vampire.
in all the time
Hang
I've
on.
been in DSA.
I know we're not even commenting on the craziness of this socialist presentation at all anymore. You guys are just what's going on right now for people watching this video later is the chat is basically planning a cult around me. I'm watching this socialist presentation. I'm trying to be responsible. The chat has totally derailed and is now planning a cult around me, which, I mean, I'm not going to say I support it. I'm not going to say I don't support it. But Vampire says, we need a Carlinian flag before we... Yes, I need a flag. Someone needs to design me a flag. I don't know. There'll probably be knitting on it. I don't know what else will be on it. You guys can go, let's crowdsource a flag. I at one time tried to design a flag for Nothing Remotely Controversial for Joshua and I gave up. I'm not a good design. Ooh, I'm hiccuping. You know it's getting real when I'm hiccuping. Yes, I wouldn't mind a fox. Foxes, as you know, are my spirit animal. AD says, the nation of Carlania. Yes, we need to have a flag design contest. I would like my own flag. LK asked a very serious question, which is, am I a queen or am I a goddess? I mean, I don't feel like I can decide that question for myself. Yep, purple. I support purple. I also support red, as in fire, but like more of like a burnt orange. I don't like fire engine red. There's traumatic issues around the color of fire engine red, but like you throw some orange in there, make it like a little like more deep. I'm cool with that. I am expecting the best flag. Yes, I'm the high priestess of Carlandia. Oh my god, this is awful. This is gonna get clipped and put on the internet. They're gonna be like, look, this is proof. This is proof that Carlin is a narcissist. She is asking her community to design a flag and lift her up as a goddess. They're all gonna take this shit seriously. We all know this isn't serious. They don't know it's nuts, man. The fucking internet, I swear to God. Okay, here's the deal. If someone designs me an epic flag, I will try my very best to make a knit version of that flag. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. I can't do anything super complicated. Yes, the haters are against the idea of fun. Haters hate fun. They hate all forms of fun and levity. Yeah, and fuck Sean Patrick. Absolutely fuck Sean Patrick. Okay, let's keep going. We have 20 minutes left of this presentation.
Is this question and this conversation, which in some ways I feel, reluctant to offer too bold an answer, because we have been struggling with it for, it's been a struggle in DSA for as long as I've been around. And I think, in part it's because of exactly what Hadas said. We live in a segregated society, and therefore the left is segregated as well.
What the
And there are
fuck
no
are you
shortcuts to
talking
getting
about?
around that. I do,
The left is
I've
segregated?
always felt that it is, it is
Wow.
the political work you do that will lead you into fighting alongside with, and therefore intermingling with, forces that do not reflect the demographic composition of DSA as it currently is. I think that's often a stronger road than, what can sometimes happen if you focus too narrowly on just sort of hitting a demographic target. It leads to tokenism. It leads to sort of a burden being put on people because they check a certain box for some oppressed minority that you feel is underrepresented, which is not to say we shouldn't be broadening and deepening who we're trying to recruit and how we're moving beyond the demographic bubbles that we may be in. But ultimately, the political work is what I think has to lead, and it has to recognize that it's not just about how we diversify our own organization, though we certainly should have that in mind, but how we diversify the sort of the coalitions that we're a part of, and are mindful of, being in struggles that put us in motion alongside people who are the various parts of the broad working class that we see as the class that we are fighting on the side of. I wish I had. There was a better explanation than that. I think there's other things to be said. Certainly, within the organization, it is also it is worth listening to the voices that maybe don't always get noticed, don't always aren't the people that are sort of like coming from the same background or coming from the same kind of premises, because I think a mistake people make sometimes too is to say,
wait. Did Incognito get a bingo? Incognito! Bingo! Congratulations on your bingo, Incognito. Well done.
This
well
organization
done.
is just all like middle class white people, which whatever the disproportionalities of it, that's not the case, right? And so that's a way that people can be sort of made invisible and silenced even within the organization. You can just pay attention to people that are already your comrades within DSA, as well as looking to what is the work you're doing, who is that putting you in struggle alongside, and then letting that also lead to addressing this problem. But again, I think be humble and be sort of real about the fact that in a country in which white supremacy and racism is as deeply ingrained into the fabric of everything about American capitalism.
Oh my God.
These are all very, very hard problems that the left has.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that everyone who defined what capitalism is at the beginning of the presentation, I'm pretty sure you all just got a free square, because he just said white supremacy is deeply ingrained in American capitalism. And I'm pretty sure at least 5 of you had white supremacy as a part of capitalism in your initial definition. So congratulations, you all win. This is on the honor system, of course.
Has been struggling with, throughout its entire existence in this country. And so we can't ignore it, and we can't try to pretend that there's a way around it, but we also have to be mindful that there's no shortcuts to addressing these questions.
Thank you for those important thoughts. You're right that we also don't want to overstate the problem, right? That can also be a way of making
This guy is a true believer. You know how he's a true believer? Because he tries to rein people in. This is what I've noticed is like people who are like useful idiots. Like I think that other kind of Lenin looking guy is more like a useful idiot. They kind of like spout off, but like the true believers try to rein people in. And they're like, no, you didn't really mean that thing. Here is what you actually meant, because they're actually guiding the development of this whole fucking social movement. And so they have to guide the language, they have to guide the narrative. Whereas the useful idiots are like, yeah, socialism is great, and here's all the reasons socialism is great. And then this guy comes in, he's like, no, here's what you actually mean. That's just an observation I've had over a year and a half of happy hours. Emphasize says, lie to the BIPOC communities and tell them we are on their side to boost recruitment. That's exactly right. Because apparently the Democratic Socialists of America are a completely white organization.
comrades of color,
Comrades
women
of color.
are members of DSA, invisible, people from all different backgrounds, invisible when they're already in DSA and doing work. I know that myself because I often am taken for just, your vanilla white guy. And on my mother's side, I'm Nicaraguan, right? I am Nicaraguan American. So it's easy to overstate the problem. But I
you
think
are
that
really
your point,
not
Peter,
white
is
at
also
all.
really worth highlighting,
Nicaraguan.
which is that
a white
these
person of color, if you
problems are all
will.
related in American capitalism. So many women of color are working class. In fact, that's the majority of the working class, even, or plurality of the working class, at least. So that is to say that in organizing the working class, we're also building power to address those demands, those needs of those people. So that's one way that we build solidarity with everyone, regardless of our background, as a multiracial working class movement.
Oh yes, you are very multiracial, as demonstrated by this here
that I
presentation.
noticed is about how to push through the
very deeply multiracial
sort of ideological environment of the United States, right? There were questions about McCarthyism, anti-communist sentiment in the past. What can we take from this discussion to really inspire us in moving forward with this work in our chapters? So I'll kick it over to you first, Hadaz. How can we overcome this ideology that's so often promoted in the mainstream media in the United States?
I mean, I think a big part of the job is being done for us by capitalism itself. I think more and more people, and especially the younger you go, are, I can't remember what the polls have shown. I think it's like more people are.
No, that's the schools doing the job for you, honey, not capitalism. That's the schools doing the job for you.
Association with socialism and capitalism, like under the age it was. But in any case, the moving towards socialism away from capitalism in terms of ideology.
That's because they don't know what it means to make money.
Confident to organize around. I think that's kind of the bigger obstacle. But I think in terms of capitalism being laid bare, especially over the last couple of years through the pandemic, I think things, couldn't be clearer. And I think a lot of the holdover of McCarthyism, the Cold War, that those things don't really frame the politics for increasing numbers of people these days. People's and instead what frames people's politics is climate change, pandemic, the utter failures of capitalism. On the negative side,
the utter failures of capitalism, based on what evidence?
Bernie's campaigns can't be underestimated in terms of popularizing socialism to a really much broader audience.
Bernie's campaigns were literally sabotaged by the establishment. Now, listen, man, I actually think, I would have actually loved it if Bernie Sanders had gotten the Democratic nomination. I think that would have been fabulous. I still regret that we never got a Bernie Sanders Trump debate. It would have been so fucking amazing. It would have been like Bernie yelling, like you'd been like two old grandfathers like at a drunken family reunion just yelling at each other. Like let's be honest, we were really robbed in 2020 when we didn't have a Bernie Trump debate. Like, come on, Bernie Sanders needs to run for president again. I want my Bernie and Trump debate. And he got cheated. And I actually have a lot of respect for Bernie. I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but Bernie has been incredibly consistent his entire effing life. It would have been amazing if he had won. It would have been amazing if he had gotten the nomination. Emphasize says, I'm anti-establishment because I want to be in charge of the establishment. I'm not suggesting I want Bernie to be president. I just wanted him to win the Democratic nomination. Like, I feel like if Bernie had won the Democratic nomination, it would have been a much more like honest nomination. But that tells you that the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. It's all about the establishment. It's all about supporting the system. I mean, they do want to be in charge of the establishment. Isn't that the truth? Emphasize. Isn't that the truth? Bernie does get passionate. He does.
I think that we're at a moment right now that is quite exciting, that has a lot of potential, and Peter and I are probably about the same age, judging from what you were saying, but it's like I've been organizing for a long time, and I can say that the kind of political discussions that take place, but also the kind of organizing that takes place, and the political sophistication of people who are much younger than I am. We're at a moment where actually there's a lot of potential and opportunities for us to move forward.
Thank you, Hadass. Yeah, I know the statistics show the majority of folks 18 to 29 have a favorable view of socialism in recent polls, which that is a dramatic change from the 2000s.
Because they don't know what it
takeaway from your
means.
comments,
You've lied to
is
them
just that,
about what it means.
the
They don't know
window
what it
for socialism
means.
is really opening for us right now, and we need to see the opportunity in that and the good news in that. So over to you, Peter. Same question. How do we fight back against that American ideology of McCarthyism?
Yeah, so I mean, I remember, back in the days when I first joined DSA, there were recurrent debates where people would say, we really shouldn't call ourselves socialists. It's just, people are going to red bait us and associate us with communism. And the counter argument to that was always, well, they're going to call us that anyway. Plus, we could adopt some other progressive or some other tag that will be rendered toxic in turn, and it also has the downside of meaning nothing basically and having no real connection to the sort of the history that socialism as a term has. And I agree that that has become even more the case. Well, first, by the time they called Barack Obama a socialist, the game was pretty much up. It had lost sort of all of its power in a certain way as a charge. And I think
yay.
I think that, like Hadass said.
Yay, we've got at least one I got one pre-order for Actively Unwoke today. Thank you, HTomC42. Guys, if you would like to pre-order Actively Unwoke, you can do so following the link pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube, or if you're watching on any other platform, it should be in the description below somewhere. The more pre-orders we get, the better. I'm just saying. It's coming out next week. I'm really excited. I'm excited for everyone to read it. I really can't wait to hear your feedback. And I appreciate the pre-order. Thank you so much.
Capitalism is sort of doing our work for us here. And I think that, again, part of the value of what we're doing here, of the conversation that we've had here tonight, is to get some sort of fundamental, I don't want to say talking points because that sounds glib, but just sort of get to the fundamental, what is the problem with capitalism? What is socialism? Why do we care about it? because I think back to, a conversation I had during election season this fall with one of the ladies from the local Democratic committee, who had gotten some propaganda from the local Republicans saying, oh, don't vote for this, ballot initiative because it's what the socialists, it's what the Democratic Socialists of America want. And then she said, I went and I looked it up, what you guys are about and what you stand for. And that's what I believe too. So, I think if we're good enough at explaining ourselves, we can make that word and that history and that imagery and all of it a source of our power rather than a source of our weakness. I really believe that, and I think that's going to vary by context, and you have to learn different ways to have those conversations in different ways to sort of explain it. But I really do think that us being socialists, being forceful about what our critique of capitalism is and what our demands are and what our history and our movement is about, I think that is actually a source of power and not a weakness, and that we should recognize that and that we should embrace it.
Couldn't agree more, Peter. I think that very often it backfires when people red bait us because it draws more attention to our ideas and the analysis that motivates it, right? So, I think to the folks who were asking
Isn't it
on this
ironic?
question,
Isn't it ironic that the socialists don't want to be confused with communists? I feel like I need to go watch some communist material after this because I've never actually watched real communist content. I don't think. Maybe I have. Maybe I was tricked into watching it. But isn't it funny that the Democratic Socialists are they're using this term red baiting in to insinuate that they don't actually want to be confused with communists? Isn't that fascinating? What do they think the difference is?
how to push back against these kinds of glib answers, familiar answers to socialism. Just break it down in terms of who holds the power, who is exploiting who, and people will start to get it from that perspective, because the fact is working people don't hold most of the power in their own lives, as we've all seen during the pandemic. But yeah, we've got
Haven't we though?
just a few closing, basically for closing comments. I'm going to open it up to Hadaz and Peter for anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't cover. Also, there was one minor question, Hadaz, if you could also mention, if you could also address this of, I think I know the answer, but someone in the audience was asking who the portrait is on your wall. Who is depicted. So, yeah, closing thoughts, Hadaz.
We're going to find out. We're going to get our answer.
Okay, this is sorry, a painting that was made by Kevin Cooper, who was on death row, and it was part of a fundraiser part of the fundraiser for the movement to get him off of death row. The portrait is of Frederick Douglass, who's a famous abolitionist.
Dang it.
Slave. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Everyone who guessed Frederick Douglass wins.
It's been a really fantastic conversation.
You win nothing, but you win.
Both the questions.
I'm glad we have that closure. Does everyone feel like we have closure?
Tom, as well. The only thing that I'll end on is that I think we need to have more of these discussions, both for the sake of political clarity and being able to talk to other folks that are newly coming around these ideas, but also because there's a lot left to discuss and to hash out and to theorize, and particularly when we talk about, what is socialism and how do we get there? This is just, part of a much longer conversation that we need to continue to have. And I, very much agree with the point that Peter made several times about, that those theoretical questions are tied into the practical work that we're doing. And we want to have a movement that doesn't have, theoretical.
She has a Bernie doll behind her.
Over here.
Holy shit.
And,
she has a fucking Bernie Sanders doll behind her.
There, we want to have an organization where everybody is, immersed in the politics and the theory and the practice. And that's why I think these kind of conversations are so important. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions, and feel free to stay in touch with me. You can find me on Twitter, Hadas Tier. You can look me up for some of the articles and my book, and you can find me in the
You can find
central,
my book on
Brooklyn
Amazon, where
branch
you can
of
give me
DSA.
money in exchange for my book, which is called Capitalism.
Thank you again for being with us, Hadas. And closing thoughts for you, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for putting this on. Thanks for so many people for showing up. I don't know if he's still here, but I'm going to give a special shout out to my boy Tyler, who I know from way back in 1998 at the University of Chicago, who let me know that he was going to come to this event. He's back around DSA now in the Twin Cities chapter. So whenever I see somebody from the old school come around, I have to say what's up to them. I think, you know, I hope we come away from this. What I would hope people would come away from this thinking about is, on the one hand, we need to understand the capitalist system in order to fight it. We need to understand how it works. We need to have a theory of it so that our individual day-to-day struggles don't just sort of run up against the structural obstacles that capitalism places in our way to prevent us from actually achieving anything. But also, let's keep our eye on that horizon, the socialist, or I would say even for myself, sort of the communist horizon of, from each according to their ability to each according to their need, a world in which, you know, the free development of each is the condition for the full development of all. You know, a world of freedom beyond the sort of the grinding necessity that, you know, capitalism, and not just capitalism, also the physical material world we live in imposes certain constraints on us. But many of the constraints that we operate under are the ones that are imposed upon us by those who would enrich themselves by our labor and destroy the world in the process. And we can imagine that better world, and we can not only imagine it, we can fight for it. And that understanding capitalism and understanding what the socialist alternative to it is, that's the key to all of that. And so, yeah, you can also I enjoyed this. I'm happy to hear from people who want to continue the conversation. I'm on Twitter, PE phrase, PE in my last name, and
he's
my
on
book, Sport
Twitter.
Futures. But
He's
yeah,
on
thanks
the
so much, Tom,
Twitters.
for keep shepherding this all along, and thanks to Das for being an excellent interlocutor for all of this. And yeah, hope to do it again sometime.
Who found him? 7,000 followers.
Thank you very much.
He
Thank
has
you again,
he has
Peter.
a statue of
I'm
Marx
going
as his
to,
header.
Hand things over to Evan for closing thoughts, follow up. Don't go
He's
away.
also selling a
There is some
book.
information about discussions if you're interested in continuing the conversation. So take it away, Evan.
Thank you. Yes, that was great, Peter and Hadassah. I really appreciate you coming out tonight. So I'll make it quick. You know, it's late by us. It's already almost 10 p.m., so I won't take up so much of anyone else's time.
hang on.
But-
From Peter's Twitter, he tweeted something saying, in a private meeting, Biden gave CHC members the impression that he's leaning towards debt forgiveness. I told you these fuckers were going to cancel student debt. I told you they were going to cancel student debt. Listen, man, if we've started this long, slow decline into socialism, I want my free shit. I'm not mad. Not mad at it at all.
We were interested in doing a discussion for this event. Obviously, very difficult with the number of people that we had tonight, wouldn't have been really possible. So we're doing something like an informal discussion to follow. I'm going to be sending a Google form in the chat. This does not guarantee you a spot in this discussion. We're planning on a discussion, I think it's February 9th, about 2 weeks from today, same time. So fill that out if you're interested in having a conversation with us and some other comrades and potentially non-members alike. There's probably going to be about 25 to 30 seats available for that Zoom discussion, which will be about 30 minutes to an hour long. Again, we can't guarantee, unfortunately, due to the number of attendees, that you'll be able to make it in. We do want to prioritize at-large members who may not have comrades to chat with in their own chapters. But definitely, I encourage you to fill out that form and let us know that you're interested in having a discussion. And we're definitely interested in doing more introductory stuff in the future. So again, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you to Hadas and Peter. Tom, thank you. Did a great job tonight. Yeah.
This guy's Twitter is a trip, man. His Twitter is a trip. All right, guys, we made it through the introduction to socialism and capitalism. Congratulations for making it to the very end. Thank you for coming to this week's happy hour. Now, we do happy hour every Friday at 5 p.m. on this channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. I also do it on my main channel on Odyssey, Rockfin, and Rumble. So make sure you check back with us next week. We'll have another woke training next week. And as a reminder, hang on, before I go off to drink the rest of my beer, 2 quick things. Number 1, my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life, comes out next week on May 10th. So if you have not yet ordered your copy of Actively Unwoke, now is the time where you should pre-order it on Amazon. It's coming on hardcover or Kindle. There used to be an audio version. The audio version was read by the Crypt Keeper. I took care of that shit. It's coming back, just not yet. So there will be an audio version of this book read by me, the author, not the fucking church lady Crypt Keeper. It will be coming soon, and I will update you on more information on when I will be recording that book. But for right now, you can get the hardcover and the Kindle version, and I hear that the Kindle version will read itself or something like that if you want the audiobook. And you can get that on Amazon. If you do not want to buy it on Amazon, you can buy it at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, independent booksellers. You can head over to activelyunwoke.com for more information and for links for other places that you can buy it. And if you become an annual member in my locals community for $50 a year, you can request a free customized autograph book plate in which I will sign this little sticker and send it to you, and I will write your name and I will write a message, and you can tell me what message to write. Or if you're feeling saucy, you can let me make up my own message and I will write whatever I want, but I will send you a free customized autograph book plate for becoming an annual member in my locals community. You can do that by heading over to kb.locals.com/support. Yes, as average person says, Actively Unwoke is really all of our books. I will be getting all the royalties, but it's all of our books, and I will try to share the wealth as much as I possibly can. You can go to kb.locals.com/support. You can sign up for $50 a year if you want that free customized book plate. If you don't want that, you're not ready for that, that's okay. You can sign up for $5 a month, or you can make a one-time gift. All of that supports the work I do. It keeps me in business. It keeps me doing these streams and hanging out and getting drunk on Friday with you guys. Brent asks, how much for a gold-plated book plate? Well, that's a little bit much, Brent. That's a little bit much. I'll have to think about that. But guys, I will be back. I'm taking tomorrow off. There will be no Sassy Saturday tomorrow. Not because Alex and I are in a fight, but because I'm going to an event at a bar in which I will be consuming copious amounts of beer and having fun with the libertarians in New Hampshire. But I will be back on Sunday at 5 p.m. on my main channel for Effed Up News of the Week. Guys, take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.